Hello everyone, and welcome to a brief, calm discussion, or ABCD. My name is Gibby, and I am here today with TDreads. My guest today is Tom from Game Theory, and we're going to be discussing the overarching theories about the meaning of the end of Secret of the Mimic. But before we start, I want to invite you, Tom, to tell us a little about yourself and tell you what got you into the Five Nights at Freddy's as a series.
I'm Tom. I'm the host of Game Theory. Basically, my start with FNAF came from this channel, pretty much, give or take. I think I'd maybe watched a Markiplier video. And I was like, okay, spooky game. I was just kind of getting into Let's Plays in 2014 and enjoying watching those. So I was like, okay, this is fun. It's fine, but like, whatever.
Probably like Matpat when I was like 8 or 9 years old. That's everyone's origin story. It's like, I was on the school bus and I saw Game Theory. So just that.
And then Game Theory released the video, the first video, the infamous first video. And despite its infamy, I very much at the time was like, oh, there's a story here. To realize there was the Spooky Bear game had story was intriguing to me. And basically, since that point, I watched every Game Theory. I kept up with Dorco and all the other people who were kind of doing theories on it.
I was just like, I like this funny Matpat fellow and this scary bear game.
Were you already like a Game Theory viewer?
I remember we had a field trip for school, and I downloaded his "How Much Is Diamond Armor Worth" video. I was like, oh my god, that's crazy.
And I started like I was peripherally aware of the books, but I had never really dove into them myself until I got this job. And then it suddenly dawned on me. Like, I think Matt was writing a theory as I got hired. And he was like, "You're going to write this one for me?" I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Don't worry, I'm kidding. It's like, you've been here a week. Don't worry about it." He's like, "But you will have to start. You need to start reading the books and catching up." And I suddenly was like, oh no, what have I done?
Oh my gosh. How many books were out?
So this was just prior to Security Breach.
Oh god.
So I had to read all the novels, all of Frights. I think those were it. I don't think Tales had started yet. Tales I got in on the ground floor, which was much easier to cope with. It was one of those things where I love the theories and love the lore, but my understanding of the books basically came from Matt and other theorists at that time. And then I went in and read them myself. In the span of about 3 months, I read every book that had come out.
Yeah, I'm just finishing up my project. It's been about a year of reading through all the Frights books and then making videos on them. And, I haven't read a book for 11-year-olds, like, since I was 11. And so, some of them, I mean, put it this way. The Real Jake is just a story about a kid slowly dying of cancer. I'm like, this is for 11-year-olds?
The books are a strange phenomenon, especially the short stories like Frights and Tales. They're kind of trying to do two things. They're trying to appeal, as you say, to like 11-year-olds, their YA novels and short stories, but they're also appealing to FNAF fans who at this point are late teens, early 20s, if not older.
Late 20s.
Yeah, well, exactly, 30s for me.
Holy Unkstead.
Holy Unk. But, I've been watching Matpat for years. Yeah, as a certified Unk, I was in college when FNAF came out. I was just talking about this with some people in chat. I have a very different experience with starting Five Nights at Freddy's. Since before certain people were born, no.
Sorry.
Withered fetus.
Okay, keep going.
Like, in terms of like when some people started when they were 5, and I'm like, why did you watch FNAF when you were 5? But, it grows up. And so because it's trying to do these two things, you get those stories like dying of cancer, but it also means the stories sometimes can feel bloated for a FNAF fan versus a non-FNAF fan, because we meet the animatronic and we're all sitting there going, great, who's dying when? Like when are they killing someone? Because we know that's what happens. Someone's going to die. Something's going to go horribly awry. And so you're just reading for 20, 30, 40 pages going, when's someone going to die? And it just takes forever to get there. Versus if you don't know what FNAF is, you can get there in like it kind of feels, I can see why it would be suspenseful and you're not sure what's going on. It's just the two different audiences reading the same material. It's funny.
Yeah, it's definitely been an experience whenever I'm reading them. Even something like Kids at Play, where there ends up not being an animatronic, it's just a haunted stop sign or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not entirely sure who these are for.
Yeah, because then you get those ones and you're like, this, like some of them just don't have FNAF in them. I think it was the first Tales book when the Petaplex is referenced once, or no, it's in one story, And then the other 2 stories don't mention it at all. And you're like, what has this got to do with the Pizzaplex?
Yeah. Tales from the Pizzaplex, not even at the Pizzaplex.
No Pizzaplex.
Yeah, it is interesting, just because I know so many newer, like FNAF theorists and YouTubers and things like that, and a lot of them are younger than you and I, and they will say that they grew up with the books. Like, to them, Frights may have been their introduction into the series, and then maybe they watched a Matpat or they watched a doco.
Yeah.
Whereas because I'm never able to, like, I just can't relate. I'm like, I didn't grow up with FNAF because I was in college when it came out, but I have been there since day one.
Yeah, so it's the same thing, because I'm, 2014, so I was just finishing up university, It was middle of university, so it's just like, it was one of these things where I've been there since the start, but it wasn't my childhood. That was, again, this is just a personal anecdote, but it was just a funny, again, talk about 5-year-olds watching and playing FNAF. I went to my family Christmas just before moving to the US, and my nephew basically was like playing with toys. We walked in, hey everyone, like big family gathering, everybody there, and then he was like, do you know about Five Nights at Freddy's? Because he suddenly showed me these toys of Freddy and Bonnie that he had. And his mum had bought them the full set. And it was quite funny because my family, my immediate family, all laughed. Whereas everyone else was like, why is this so funny? Why? So we have no idea what this is. And it almost felt like that Malcolm in the Middle meme where it all goes pitch black around Hal as he turns to the kid, just goes, if I tell you this, you can never go back. Do I know about Five Nights at Freddy's? Let me tell you. So yeah, for him, it is his childhood. And it's just, it's such a strange situation.
I was working in a movie theater when the first movie came out, and obviously we had the poster on the wall. And this father was walking by with his kid, like, over his shoulder. That's how young this kid was. And he just points and he goes, Freddy! And I look at my other manager, and we look at each other, and we're like, that's not... That's a little weird.
That can't be okay.
PG-13.
13?
Yeah.
PG-13. So you wouldn't have been that young to get it, fortunately.
Yeah.
Although I did describe it as baby's first horror movie, because it's a good movie. It's light on the horror.
Yes. I think I got to watch it before it came out because of my privileges at being a manager at a movie theater. Yeah. And the scene where Max gets, like, cut in half, it's all in shadows. But I'm like, that's going to be a little intense for some, like, little kids. The little kids whose parents are going to complain to me when the movie's too scary.
Yeah. Exactly, like all the parents that were reported complaining about the Halloween Horror Nights being too scary for kids when it was never advertised as for kids.
All right, so I typically ask people, tell me about your channel. How'd you get into content creation? I have a feeling your story's going to be a little different than TDreads and Withered Turkle.
I was thinking about making videos for a while as just like a part-time gig to kind of bring in some extra money. And there are very few things that I knew about, but I was so brain rotted with FNAF knowledge. I was like, I could probably just make a solid, like, couple years worth of videos out of FNAF at least. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Very different story. I am I think, like, I don't know what the word would be for it now, but I'm an employee, but a YouTuber at the same time. It's very, very strange. I got into this purely out of, some people might call it luck, some people might call it fate. It's a lot of coincidences back to back. But I had been, let's say, following the channel since 2011, following a bunch of channels, and actually had my own YouTube channel years ago that was doing fine, but I got too busy with having a real job, quote unquote. And so kind of abandoned all of that. And that real job was for a company called Fox. And Fox then became Disney. And Disney then fired us all because Disney Plus became a thing, and so they didn't need an on-air department anymore. And with that, I was then the middle of COVID, needed work, and was gonna go freelance. And so I was just like reaching out to anyone I possibly had any contact with, and then doing the rounds of, I don't know you, but I would like to work with you. Please hire me. And one of those emails was to Matt. Kind of didn't expect anything of it. Was just like, here's my resume. I was a producer at Disney. Please give me a chance. And then 2 months later, I get an email back going, yep, we want you to audition. What do you want to do? Because I found out later that Jason, who was the head of production at the time, wanted me to be a producer. But I, being me, was like, I want to be a writer. because I'd always wanted to be a writer, but no one had ever given me the chance or the training. And so Jason went, oh, fine, we'll audition you as a writer. And apparently I was good enough. so, so I wrote a film theory of Can Winnie the Pooh Survive on Honey? That was really fun. I then did Captain Crunch Stolen Valor for food theory, because that was a relatively new channel at the time. And then I disappeared for several months working other jobs, being freelance for other people. And my New Year's resolution, this was near Christmas time, and then New Year's resolution, I went, I really want to make game theory work. It's my passion. It's what I really enjoyed doing. And it's like the company that I've always wanted to work for. So I need to like prioritize it. And so that's when I wrote What Level is Ash's Pikachu? Which took me 3 months to make.
Yeah, you had to watch every episode, right?
Yeah, the thing is, it's only half. It was 600. It's like 650 episodes and 13 movies, which is like half the anime. Because I had to put a cutoff somewhere, and we were like, look, here's the infamous fight with a level 5 Snivy that he loses. Let's get to that point, and let's talk about why he definitely should not have lost, as like our impetus, rather than just going, I'm going to go insane and watch 1,200 plus episodes. Maybe one day I'll do the back end, and we'll have a part 3 going, here is the final level. But I did that episode, loads of spreadsheets, and that was when they kind of brought me into their writers' meetings. And so after a few months, with my producing experience, Jason then went, hang on, we want to introduce creative directors to the company. They need to be good writers, but they also need to be good producers. Tom has shown he's a good writer and he has producing experience. Let's ask him. And they basically offered me, they just said, which channel do you want? When I interviewed. And in my heart of hearts, I was like, I want to do game theory. But it also felt like that would have been really weird to have asked for as like the channel, especially at the time, not knowing what Matt's sort of future plans were. And so I was then like, we talked for like 30 minutes, me and Matt. And then he went, this guy needs to be on game theory. And then that was the end of the conversation. And so I was like, okay. And so that was in 2021. I was then brought on as creative director, and then the rest is kind of history. Where after like a year, we got bought out by Lunar X, and then a year after that, Matt, or less than a year after that, Matt then told us all, by the way, this time next year, I'm leaving, and you're going to be taking over. And so we had like a year's intensive training course, and did a bunch of stuff in preparation, and then March of 2024, there we are. I then became the YouTuber. I became the host. And so I've been doing it ever since. But I've been writing game theory scripts since 2021.
That's awesome. I always feel like whenever people ask me, like no matter what area of life we're talking about, they're like, how do you do that? I'm like, well, it's luck, and it's also trying. No amount of luck or skill is going to get you that meeting with Matpat if you hadn't sent him the email.
Exactly. Right? It's always my advice to everyone is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly.
It's exactly that.
Talked about game theory. Talked about your start on YouTube. Now we're going to actually go and talk about our favorite thing in the world to talk about in front of hundreds of thousands of people, Five Nights at Freddy's.
Cool. Let's go.
Okay, so Secret of the Mimic, biggest event of the summer. Incredible story in that game, in my opinion. I actually think it's probably Scott's best writing in the franchise so far. I love everything it added to the lore. I love the atmosphere of the game. I love the new characters we got, especially because now we have, like, so many logs and stuff from, like, Edwin and Fiona compared to 5 lines from Phone Guy from the old games. Like, these really feel like a lot more interesting characters. When I rolled credits on the secret ending, the third ending, where you're putting the robot kid to sleep, I had no idea what I had just seen. I know that you and Ash played it on GT Live. I have not watched your entire playthrough. But what was going through your head when you see the room that looks kind of like the FNAF 4 bedroom and the little robot boy that goes and takes a nap?
I mean, like pretty much every theorist I've seen and or spoken to, by that point in the game, even before that moment, you're already putting pieces together of like, this David kid feels very familiar. There's a lot of toys. And like, again, because even with Moon.exe, like the room in Moon.exe, you're looking at it going, this also feels a little familiar. So like dots had been like made in my head to connect Crying Child, David Afton, whatever you want to call him, with David Murray. And so then walking through that vent and into that room and seeing the toys and the wardrobe and the color schemes and all those things, you're just sitting there going, Like, I think part of it was, what am I looking at? And oh gosh, how do I explain this? Because inevitably I'm going to have to talk about this. So it's like, oh gosh, what does this mean? And the third part of it was because by that point we had done the parachute ending already. We'd done all the endings up until that secret ending. And so it was then going, which of these endings is canon? And so it's literally just racing through going, this can't, no, this can't, can it? No, no. And it's so hard because, like, with so many games, you get the secret ending feels like, oh, you've worked so hard. This has to be like the true ending. For a long time, I made the case of like Security Breach. I was like, it is not the hardest ending to get to, but the Princess Quest ending is the only 3-star ending, whereas the Afton ending feels harder to get, but is only 2 stars as an ending. And so I was like, so how do you weigh this up? And so yeah, there was a lot of those thoughts of going, what's canon here? Even if it's not canon, is there stuff we can take away? Why FNAF 4? Like, I'd seen the house on the hill and stuff, and so you're going like, this feels like it has to be the same. We've seen stuff, it feels like we're on top of other things, but why connect these 2 characters? This feels so weird.
Mm-hmm.
It was the big curveball of everything, because there are a lot of curveballs. We all saw it. Tails games was thrown out the window well and truly, and so a lot of curveballs thrown, but that one really took the cake of just like gobsmacked, kind of like, what is happening?
But what's the origin of a GodDavid the theory? What was going on in your brain? When did you first start thinking about it?
So the theory probably started the second that I found that purple phone in that box. I was like, no. That was probably the start of it, because like everybody playing through that game, you get to a certain point where you're like, wait a second, why does he look like Gregory? Why does he have the crying child's room? Why does he have the 900 other things? Why does he live in his house? Why does he have Nightmare Fredbear legs in his closet? Why does he, 8 billion things in that game are kind of tying those 3 together. So just on the first playthrough, I started thinking of it.
Yeah, you were also, how long did that stream last? Like 17 hours?
20, I think.
20 hours, sleep deprived, sprinting through Secret of the Mimic.
When the best ideas come. That Chica Locker section, bro.
The some of the premise, like one of the things that we all sort of went into Secret of the Mimic with was this idea that we had all sort of just come to accept Fazburger. Like within a week before the game came out, we found all the evidence between the trailer and the Ruin game. It is true. And so I think we were all sort of primed to be like, yeah, I mean, you personally, you were like, we're going to go to the sister location bunker. We're going to find sister location. It's going to be there. Like, this isn't just a game that took place 50 years ago. This is going to, like, solve the lore. Having the prep in your mind that we might stumble on Circus Babies, or we might find, like, an exact passage that's a recreation of some other game, and then turning the corner in that vent and seeing what looks to be the crying child's room from FNAF 4.
Well, that was one of the things I was like, we're going to see the FNAF 4 house. That was one of the things that I was thinking.
In the couple days before the game came out, me and a bunch of other theorists were doing just constant live streams, picking through all the trailers and those little animated teasers they were doing. Some creators came up with the idea, I believe Fazbear Entertainment, Cryanide, TDreads, myself, Mamakato, some other YouTubers who were present, came up with this idea that a lot of the locations that the FNAF games take place in may all be the same plot of land. So, like, we all know the Pizzaplex is built over the FNAF 6 location. Some people thought that maybe that was also Fredbear's. Now there's, like, the weird FNAF 4 house on the hill, and there's a house on the hill in this game, and things like that.
Yeah.
And so we were all like, I wonder if the underground area below Murray's is going to end up being the same physical location that Sister Location was. So I'm playing the whole game primed to be like, okay, this is a prequel. It takes place a couple years or decades before the other games. So if we do see something, it'll be a location before we see it in the future, right? If we see Circus Babies Entertainment, it won't be Circus Babies, it'll be the space that turns into that. So walking into the room and seeing, like, the little robot toy is on the floor, or the wallpaper is a similar color.
Yeah.
This is not a reference back to FNAF 4. This is something that takes place before FNAF 4. So how does that happen? How does the more important thing happen in the future? So that's what just completely, I literally sat down for like 3 days. I didn't do a video. I'm like, I need to figure out why, if Crying Child's Golden Freddy, he's like the most important kid in the franchise, and he's Dave Afton. Why do we have another David? But this David died before that Dave was even born. Like, typically you'd think that causation would go the other way, that maybe Golden Freddy influenced, a future kid to be named David. But now we have a different David who came first. And so that was my struggle. I'm like, I need to solve why this happened first.
Yeah, no, and I think it's completely fair, and it's been so fascinating. You talk about like going, oh, we thought it might have been like a sister location thing, and it's so funny going back through past theories where like we said that in one of our ruin theories. We're like, oh, this underground location is sister location, and I remember not quite backlash. Like I know we've had FNAF backlash. This was just kind of like grumblings where people are like, oh, it just feels like all the locations are on top of each other. And then this game comes out, it's like all the locations are on top of each other. And similarly, I think you pointed out in a video, we did our ultimate timeline and we talked about Mrs. Afton as kind of like a character that helped fix some of the holes in the timeline and going, this is a character we don't know anything about, this female, monarch of the family doing things, and then lo and behold, it's not Mrs. Afton, but it's Fiona, who was kind of like the monarch of the original, like the Murray family and the original sort of FNAF family. And so it's like, okay, we had the pieces, but just not like the linchpin or the name, essentially. Like we didn't like, so it's like, oh, it wasn't quite sister location, but it was another location that's similar or connected. And so it's interesting how these stories and how Steel Wool is telling these stories is shifting compared to like how Scott used to tell it, where we're getting pieces, but it almost feels like we will never truly be able to find the answers until like the next game comes out and they reveal that piece while setting up new dominoes.
100% agree. It really felt like for the first 4 games at least, you could solve everything that had sort of come up to that point. Obviously, I mean, I feel like, this is not throwing shade at Matpat. I feel like I would have done the same thing too, to try to see what character that we're familiar with is the killer. Phone Guy's the killer. The answer is that he was his own character, and you can come to that conclusion, but I just think the theorist brain wants to find the connections.
And it's also with theory writing, so often there's a challenge of how complicated do you go for the sake of, not accuracy, that's the wrong word, because we do care, we do want to, at the end of the day, they're theories, but it's nice to be right when you can be. And you're trying your best to find the right answers. But sometimes, like, there's a simpler narrative solution, and you just go, how much credit do we want to give, one, like, audiences in order to follow it, because there can be a lot, and so it can be hard to follow, but also, how much credit do you want to give Scott? So like narratives. And so sometimes, like the connection between those two characters is a simplification of narrative. In the same way like Mrs. Afton came about, it was a simplification of narrative rather than having this miscellaneous unknown thing. It's like, well, there is a character that we kind of are aware of, but she's not super known, and so it allows for an easier story rather than introducing a new third character at that moment in time.
I feel like your Mrs. Afton conclusion was the best that could have come up at the time, because you had all the evidence. You had all the pieces, and you put them together in the right order. And you could have released a video to, all the millions of game theory viewers that could have said, we found all the evidence, and the conclusion is that it's probably a woman that we've never heard of before. And
exactly, it's not satisfying, right?
That's the right answer. It ended up being correct, but no one wants to watch that.
Yeah. It was just like, oh, that's a non-answer. And then you're like, what do you want?
Yeah, that's what Scott's doing. Yeah, do you want to tell them about God Victim, sort of the theory that was a precursor to GodDavid, that we were all going into the game sort of half believing?
Well, I didn't really, I didn't invent it, but on whether or not I thought of it of our own accord without knowing about, like, Memory Victim is the earlier name of the theory. But, we thought of it just like on our own, just looking at the stuff in the game of FNAF 4. It's basically kind of like an inverse to Dream Theory, where instead of the crying child kind of imagining these things in his head because he saw like a toy in real life, It's the crying child actually manifests them into reality later as Golden Freddy, because he saw them when he was alive. So the reason that Toy Chica in FNAF 2 takes off her beak is because Golden Freddy is in the building, and the spirit possessing Golden Freddy remembered a Toy Chica without its beak, like way long ago. And then the same goes for like Mangle being ripped apart and Balloon Boy existing. Maybe it gets really weird, right? And the problem is that pretty much all the big theorists now, besides like game theory, like the main one, but like you, me, Unwithered, we believe some version of memory influence reality isms. And it's so no matter what way we're gonna pick, I think it kind of actually hurts the story a bit, because I'm so confident that there's some overarching force that is removing agency
Yeah.
from the story. Yeah, whether that's Fiona or Bite Victim or David Murray.
Or some sort of I've been closely reading the Fright stories again for my big finale for coverage of the books, and it kind of seems like there's just some force that is agony. Like if you gather up, if you gather up just a bunch of agony, it sort of gains its own, for lack of a better word, will that isn't necessarily tied to like a human character who would have reasonable motivations. It's just like a manifestation of evil. Like it might as well be a demon. It's like, I'm just here to do bad things.
Yeah, just like violent.
Yep. So I mean, the moment I heard memory victim / god victim, I'm like, that explains so much. Obviously, it's much better than dream theory. And I started looking, like, when you hear something like that theory and you start looking around, you just find more evidence for it because it's everywhere. It's a theory of everything that sort of explains the whole franchise.
Yeah.
And for me, the thing that then threw a wrench into god victim / memory victim was the names David Afton and David Murray, which, when I didn't think Tales was canon, sort of was fine. When I believed Tales fiction, it's like, oh, this fictional book character is named after Crying Child. Then Secret of the Mimic comes out. David Murray's a real character. He died before Dave Afton was even born. That was the moment when I was like, okay.
In his house.
in a recreation of his room with the same toys on the floor. Forget like the wallpaper being slightly different.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I'm going to place my toy robot right here.
It's very clearly supposed to be. They wouldn't have modeled it that way if it wasn't supposed to be, They're game designers. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, so my thoughts were like, there's something similar to Memory Victim. There's something similar to God Victim. But it can't be that Crying Child is the god, because it seems like he himself is merely an echo of David Murray. So I think that you came to the same conclusion. All right, so the sort of what I'm going to call the problem of why are all of these events happening first in Secret of the Mimic and then sort of echoing down into the future. Everyone, or maybe not, maybe I have a lot of new viewers because your name's in the title. Everyone who's here should know that I have a theory called Fate Fiona, which is basically that the F10 machine that Fiona's consciousness is in, or a program that thinks it's Fiona's consciousness, whichever it ends up being, is connected to all of the computers and all of the little agony devices in the animatronics, and that the reason that the story of Edwin and David and Fiona and Murray's costume manner seems to echo into the future is because she's sort of taking on the role of the storyteller from the Tales books, and so she's sort of replaying, almost like the way that ChatGPT or like DALL-E works, where you feed into it some data, and then all it can really do is rearrange it to get new things. She's sort of just rearranging her story over and over and over. So you get a kid named David who dies in an accident on his birthday, but now it's FNAF 4. You get an animatronic that gets stuffed into a suit, the way that the Mimic puts the human bodies into the suits. People are now putting human bodies into the mascot costumes. So you have these things that are now taking place into the future because of what Fiona remembers and how she's matching it as this sort of like Scott's commentary on AI. TDreads has an alternative theory.
GodDavid at its core is just the belief that the consciousness or like mimic program that is the essence of David Murray is in David Murray, ends up in David Afton, ends up in Gregory. That is it. Use whatever mechanism you like. It is simply the idea that something or someone is putting the consciousness of David Murray is in David Afton, is in Gregory. I've gotten less strict on the ways that this could happen over time, to the point where now I think that it's entirely compatible with Fate Fiona.
Ooh.
All that needs to happen is just that it actually like you can have Fate Fiona be a thing, but then also add on to that it's actually like M2 or the kid inside of Crying Child and Gregory or whatever. Like it can be that like he just wants to make his son act like him. It can also be that his son is becoming him because they live on that haunted burial ground. You know what I mean? It's you just got to find some way to get that consciousness, or like some way to get that consciousness into all three of those children.
So, do you want to go over the evidence you found within Secret of the Mimic and then within Security Breach, etc., as to why you think that this is sort of like the direction that Scott is going? Like, why these theories, my own Fate Fiona, GodDavid, and then Tom's two theories about the series being a fictional video games / Gregory's a robot.
Yeah.
They sort of explain, it's kind of like if Scott sat down after finishing UCN. He's like, what happens next? And then he sort of went down one of these paths, and those informed all the stories going forward. What is the evidence that points to GodDavid for someone totally uninitiated?
Oh, jeez. Oh, God. We'll start with the meta stuff, honestly. Scott Cawthon has previously stated that he likes to clarify in future games when people get things wrong in older releases, right? And so Scott has plenty of opportunities to backtrack on lines of thought that he does not want people pursuing, and that was done with Dream Theory in Sister Location, right? That was very clearly like slammed to super death in Sister Location. However, with Secret of the Mimic, he not only doesn't say anything about like Gregory, Crying Child similarity isms, he actually doubles down, and he makes another kid with the same shirt in the same kind of like pose on that hill. And this kid is also named David, and this kid literally lives inside the FNAF 4 house. And so just from purely Scott's perspective on that, he clearly wants you to make the connection between the three children, because he understood plenty about Gregbot. That was a very popular theory, very popular meme. And that's one of the things I say in my video, is that from Scott's perspective, he wrote the entirety of Secret of the Mimic. He can very easily put a nail in this coffin if he wants to, right? But he then goes ahead and makes the kid with the same appearance as Gregory live in the FNAF 4 kids' house and have the FNAF 4 kids' toys. So this game for Scott is largely another example of him kind of just like leading us back to that connection. We were like, ha ha ha, Gregbot funny, isn't that stupid? He just looks like the Crying Child because it's cool. People had largely moved on from Gregbot, I think. Around the time Secret of the Mimic came out, it wasn't on my mind. But then Scott, with this game, led us back to those connections. It's on purpose. Look, guys, look. That's really all the evidence I think you need to start comparing, is because the creator of the game wants you to. As far as evidence in game goes, I've mentioned a lot of it. They have the same toys, the same name. Their possession functions exactly the same. They have similar dynamics. They're scared of kind of like these foxy-like puppets. Abusive debt, just kind of everything is very, very similar. Afraid of endoskeletons, presumably. Although you could argue that Cece's only afraid of the suits. Basically, there are so many similarities between the three design-wise. I'm just going over stuff from Secret of the Mimic right now, which mostly relates to the Crying Child, actually. Gregory's not really present in Secret of the Mimic. What else? Security Breach therapy CDs, very obvious. If you haven't watched the video, I'd probably at some point watch the GodDavid video. You've probably seen it by now, though. It's nearing 1 million views.
Humble brag.
Humble brag. You know how it is.
So the
you've got all the you like it dark. You like building cubby holes. Your parents were actually great. Why are you telling me you had bad parents? There's all these little things in the therapy CDs that kind of lead you back to connections with David Murray. So Secret of the Mimic existing is enough for me to start kind of thinking about GodDavid, because at least half of that game's like lore is meant to make you go like, what is going on here? You got a purple toy phone and a crying child picks up on the other end. What is going on? You know, it's, to me, it's very on the nose, which is why I'm so surprised that it needs explaining to so many people, because I feel like it's hardly even subtext that they're related.
Tom, you have sort of two, and I love that you did this in your video, by the way. You have two different sort of competing theories that sort of branch into different directions. And so I want to hear from you what these two, like, explain to the class what these two theories are, and then I'll ask you some questions about them.
Yeah, so I don't have fancy fan names for these theories at this point. I'm sure we can come up with some, but I didn't at the time come up with any. It was just these were two options as I saw them, and one of them was that kind of relied on as we were talking about, the secret ending being the canon ending. Afton comes, finds this robot kid, claims it as his own, creates skin suits, all these kinds of things in order to like learn from this kid, figure out what makes it tick, figure out why this robot is acting like a kid. And so the crying child, David, is the mimic. It is the M2 machine. And then when it gets bit by Golden Freddy, it malfunctions, it's dead, quote unquote, and Afton's like, ugh, useless, moves on. But Fiona comes in to be like, I will put you back together, and then goes about creating Gregory as a robot kid in classic game theory fashion, with Gregory Robot Kid, bringing that one back around. And so you end up with the Mimic 2, the M2 down in the basement, this kind of broken thing that had to repair itself, which is why it looks different, with and then Gregory as I guess an M3, and I kind of talked about it in the video I talked about yours and TDreads theories of kind of like, it's kind of an M3 situation where you've then got Fiona or Glitch Trap's attempt at making David again. And so that is kind of the impetus for that theory, where everyone's a robot kid and it's been M2 the whole time. That's why everything's that's why these kids are the same.
So so in this so Psychic Friend Fredbear at the end of FNAF 4, that's Fiona speaking?
So when the text changes color.
Okay.
So when you get that slight pale yellow versus the golden yellow, like that annoying line that everyone has frustrated everyone forever. It was just one of those things that as I was writing it, it kind of clicked of like, why is it a similar but not the same? Because it's someone mimicking the voice of Afton. So it's similar but not quite right. And that's good. Which I thought was an interesting concept, an interesting idea to play with that. And then the second theory was, I think you dubbed it games fiction.
A lot of people call it that, yes.
Or a lot of people call it, again, I haven't... It's one of those things where it's like there's so many names of things and people name things, and I'm like, I can't keep up with all these names. I think one of your videos had like a list of, you need to be aware of all these theories. I'm like, what are these names? And then I look at them and I go, oh, I'm aware of this theory. I just don't know what the names are. But yeah, games fiction, which is basically that we have known that the first like 4 to 7 games are in-universe games, but we've largely taken them as they're based on real events with some embellishments maybe here and there, which can help answer continuity issues and blah, 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 but they're primarily there as like the facts. My proposal was that they are entirely fictional. They are Fazbear essentially rewriting history and using the games to do it. Where the reason, because David Afton isn't the only person we see similarities to. There's all the location stuff that we've talked about. There's even similarities between, like, both Afton and Henry share similarities with Edwin. And so with all of these connections, it's going, why are all these things feel so similar, like in the same sort of vein that we've been talking about? Why are they all the same? And if these games were being made by Fazbear as games, as essentially pieces of fiction, whether based on real events or not, you're going, well, they could be entirely fictional. Like most video games are, like FNAF is as a story, it's entirely fictional. So are they essentially going, we're going to remove Edwin from the picture. We're going to make this, this is about the Afton family story. This is about William Afton and his kids and their story and their fall to tragedy, because he's the founder of Freddys. And so people know who William Afton is. So it's like, this is the Freddy story. And it kind of allows them to remove Edwin and his involvement and the bad business practices that FNAF did to cause his company to go under and buy them out. It sweeps them under the rug. Alongside that, it then also allows you to go, oh, you know all those murders that happened that we're being accused of? Oh, it was our founder who none of us really liked, but he's dead now. So don't worry about it. We're a good and clean company again. Please come back to our Pizzaplex. Please come back and enjoy our facilities. And then it's like, it just brings into question a bunch of things like, did William Afton go on to possess a suit, or did he just die in a springlock accident? Were there ever spirits, or was it the mimic AI controlling the animatronics? Like, basically a bunch of things like that. Just, and I said about it in the theory, it's like, there's a lot of evidence for it. I don't like it, because it means like so much of like 10 years of theorizing just goes out the window, because you go, well, what can we trust? Unless there's like double down evidence in the Steel Wool era of games. So if like, if something gets mentioned in security breach, we can then go, yes, that is 100% true from FNAF 6 or whatever it is from a previous game. But if it's only in FNAF 3, you suddenly go, well, can we trust it or not? And that's a really awful place to be a theorist from, because you just don't know, and everything can be dismissed as, well, that's fake. That's not real. Or it is real, and it's just like, it just creates complications. But yeah, the idea was just going that Fazbear stole Edwin's entire story, wiped him off the face of the map, and was able to pin all of the tragedies on Afton, rather than taking ownership over the fact that they had an AI that was going out of control and killing kids and stuffing them into suits. Basically.
Yes. And I do want to, I know a lot of people don't like that theory. And I mean, even as you just said, you wouldn't like if that was the story.
No.
But I feel like I say this about a lot of my own theories to people. If the story is bad, then the theory will sound bad. But it doesn't 100%. Mean the evidence is bad.
No. and that was the thing. It's like, again, it's like, how much credit do we want to give Scott, right? To some of these things. I think it's funny how the fandom as well can go through ebbs and flows of Scott is a genius writer and Scott doesn't know what he's doing, as two paths. And it's interesting at what times those switch. And so therefore what theories sound crazy or not.
Yeah, Scott had it planned all the way from the beginning, is something I hear some people say. And Scott has no idea what he's doing. He's not even really writing it anymore. He's making it up as he goes along. He's reacting to fan feedback and theories, is another thing I hear.
Yeah.
And those are, I think neither of those is 100% correct.
No.
Nope.
It's a little column A, little column B, most of column C.
I completely agree that it's not even just from a theorist perspective, but from you're playing Secret of the Mimic as a video game for the first time, and you see all of these story elements from earlier games that all happened later in the timeline, just repeating themselves. And I think that the most on-the-nose bit is, at the end of the game, you go down into the proto-Freddys, and it's literally just the FNAF 1 layout.
Yeah.
Like, you see these... Again, it's almost like you can import the word prototype into everything that you see in the game.
Hell, even Glamrock Freddy in Security Breach is a prototype that has his stomach open, like the protos do, which is, that's a whole can of worms.
The little like toasters that chase you at the end of the game, they're in the files are called like proto mimics or something, right? Or proto M.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And so we see sort of like, okay, the David Murray they tried to bring him back as a robot, but like it didn't really work. In one ending, you kind of have it work, but it's very ambiguous. We don't even know if that's the canon ending. So my perspective, if I didn't know anything about FNAF lore, right, my perspective would sort of be, this game is showing us that a lot of these elements existed really far back in the timeline. They were not perfected. They didn't really work. So then if we sort of went through the story chronologically, we get to the Pizzaplex era, we now see that they are working. If Gregory is another crying child, we're like, oh, it's kind of like how they tried to bring back David Murray, but now they have brought back David Afton. Or, oh, they tried to bring back a pizzeria, and now they actually did. There's now another pizzeria in the basement below this one. It seems like the word prototype, and I think someone at Steel will use the word schematics. They're like, oh, the most important thing about our next game is schematics. That may have been about Ruin, though. And I think that schematics and prototype probably have similar
Oh, you literally
names.
have the objective of Seeker the Mimic is to get the Mimic schematics. So
yeah, so I think that's the, you were talking about subtext. I think that's the on the surface interpretation of what the game's trying to say. And then the subtext would be going through with a fine-tooth comb and being like, there is one oil painting on the ground that shows David Murray on a hill with a robot, and it's the same thing as the one in Gregory.
yeah, but like you don't need to go through with a comb to find that. Anyone that's ever played both games will see that image and be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's in
Like,
a secret
you don't need to
room.
think about it.
It's in a secret room on the floor, tilted away from the camera. That's kind of what I meant.
Okay, hypothetically though, if you saw it on your first playthrough, you'd be like, oh.
Yeah.
That's a Gregory.
It's the same painting, but facing a different way. Yeah.
Which also, that hill they're sitting on, you've probably seen the video. I went out of bounds with Rye Toast.
Mm-hmm.
That's just on the FNAF 4 property, where we know that the crying child probably lived at some point or was at some point. So all three of the kids stand in the same spot too.
Yes, I also went out of bounds. I think we might disagree on which tree it is, but I overlaid it and had them line up like 1-to-1. But it is there on the house.
Worst case scenario, it's like 10 feet away.
Yes.
So
I'm like, it must be on the left side of the house. It's this tree, and you're like, no, it's this tree. Either way, there's so much.
It's on their property.
Yes,
it's on their property.
Yes, there's so much stuff pointing to where we're supposed to go. My apprehension with sort of any big theory at the moment is just that Secret of the Mimic threw out. It was kind of like Scott or Steel Wool sort of flopping their big wallet on the ground to be a power move, to be like, hey, you know how Fiona didn't exist? Well, actually, she was she's Maxis.
She's a Maxis.
Yeah. She's a Maxis. Like, she's important. These characters who didn't exist in the previous game, like all your theories about security breach and Ruin are wrong.
I would say she's the most important character in this new era. Yes.
And she didn't exist until 5 seconds ago. Okay, so you and I were both in the camp that we did not believe the Frights and Tales books were games canon, like actually took place in the games literally. That's obviously been confirmed without a shadow of a doubt now. But would you say in this sort of games fiction theory that we would have to view FNAF 1 through UCN the way that we kind of used to look at the books? Sort of like, this can point us in the right direction, but we also can't take it as literal until it's confirmed in the main games anyway. Like, how do we use them for theorizing?
Yeah, no, I think that's, again, if you're prescribing to that way of thinking and that being like the true law, and that's like the way you want to, like, plant your flag and go with it, then yeah, I think you're right. I think it kind of comes down to the like we do the books now, but like we did the original novels before Tales games and all of that, and like we did with even the movie. There's those elements of like, this is essentially something where we can maybe get some ideas, possibly, but again, it's like thinking about, well, who do these characters reference? So okay, this is an Afton action. Is that an Afton action or is that an Edwin action? Based on the similarities between these characters, is this a Michael action or is this someone else? Like, and having to find the word that everyone hates, but parallels, and I know there's a lot of discussion about what the word parallels means and why it gets misused. Different debate for a different day. But though that sense of like, what are these things that we can take and maybe apply meaning in a roundabout way versus a direct one-for-one, this is Afton doing this, therefore Afton did this kind of energy. I think that would be how you'd have to approach it, which again, as we've all known as the people who weren't going for Tales games, is a very hard position to hold and a very tough position to theorize from sometimes. Hence, like I say, I'm not prescribing to that particular... I wouldn't say I prescribe to it. I think there's a lot of really good evidence and it's a really interesting idea. It's just very hard as a theorist to say that is the direction we're going. That is the direction that Scott is going. Therefore, Yes. I feel like this is an appropriate time to ask this question because I know a lot of people really debate about this a lot. But when
good buddy Matpat went and spoke to Scott in person, and he learned all the lore. Did Matt tell you and the rest of the team what's going on? Have you been lying to our faces for 2 years because you actually know the truth?
Yeah, this is why I'm throwing out their theories, is to throw you off the scent. No, no. Matt is a real man of integrity. I've always said that, and I will give him that. He is he recognizes when a secret is a secret and when it's important. And I had a chat, and he said, "Oh yeah, Scott gave me a bunch of secrets." I was like, "Oh," and he's like, "I'm not telling you because you're gonna take over my job. So you have to figure it out like I did."
Oh my gosh.
And so, like, there are some secrets that he later divulged because Scott divulged them publicly. So, for example, the burn trap stuff that got revealed during Dorco's interview, the like misinterpretation of burn trap and how that was being handled. That was something that he went, "Oh, that's public now." Yeah, no, that's something Scott told me. But that's the only stuff that I know, is the stuff that now everyone knows. So yeah, I'm as in the dark as everyone else. One day, maybe once I retire, I will get like the handoff from Matt, and he'll give me the secrets, and then I can hand it off to the next person.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, everyone, when they retire, they get to go to FNAF theory heaven and learn all the truth. Oh my gosh. We have a super chat from Mathesy or something, Mathesay, and they actually really like the game's fiction theory, because they think it allows the older games to stand on their own. You know, they still have their big climactic ending without all these people coming back to life. And it lets things like the pattern of Fate Fiona or GodDavid happen without needing, like, magical powers. Fiona doesn't need to brainwash William or something. She's just sort of echoing these thoughts into fictional video games. So yeah, there are people who appreciate the theory.
Yeah, again, I think there's a lot of evidence. I think that, as they've just pointed out, I think there are some good qualities to it in terms of, like you say, the people constantly coming back from the dead, and the stories kind of that arc feeling self-contained in a way is really nice. But yeah, but for people like us who are trying to theorize consistently and like as things continue to grow and evolve, it's a very hard stance to like go, this is the foundation I'm working from, and then move forward. It kind of works in a vacuum, almost.
Yeah, because, thinking about the story, it would basically be Secret of the Mimic happens in the 70s, and then the next concrete event is Help Wanted in the late 2010s or 2020s, but even then, it's mostly in a video game, so the only real thing that happens is Vanessa gets taken over, and then Security Breach. So, like, there's 3.5 games of content.
Exactly.
And that's the entire FNAF story. So there's, like, nothing to go off,
Yes, there's very little to work off of, and, like, I definitely think those games are the Steel Wool era of games right now are the most important ones in terms of, like, current theorizing, because that's the story Steel Wool is telling, and similarly to FNAF 1 to 7, they are going to be their own arc, their own era, their own... It's the era of the Mimic, essentially, versus the era of William. And so there is an importance in looking at those games more heavily maybe than some of the old ones, but having the entire, like, 80s through to the 2010s, 2020s, however far in the future you want to put it, totally off the map. That's, 3-4 decades just gone of Fazbear history, and we're like, And that just kind of feels weird when all we've wanted is to fill the gaps from before Freddys, and then it's like, we do that, but we're gonna get rid of all the other stuff. It's just like, great, we now have more gaps, which, I mean, it could give them license to, like, essentially remake the old games, like the original 7 games, but, like, with the new story, like, reboot them almost. Like, you could do that and go, well, this is the real story. This is what really happened versus the fictionalized games. And so that would be when you could then have your cross comparisons of what is true and what is not. Whether Steel Wool will do that, I don't know. I think they want to make new stuff, which is fair. It would have been a really good way to have incorporated FNAF Plus and the like the Fanverse initiative. That could have been a good way to do that. But again, I don't think that's the direction it's going, and it's not the most satisfying for theorizing.
Yeah, have you heard of the Frights fiction or the Tales fiction theories? Maybe not by name.
Again, racking my brain. That's the idea that they are in-universe books, right?
Yes, that the Pizzaplex is publishing Fazbear's Fright and Tales from the Pizzaplex, which is why there's a Fetch arcade machine.
I mean, I think, yeah, I've heard of that. I think it makes, in the fact that we've now got in-universe games, like nothing is off the table. They're selling merch, they're selling games, like literal games, and making games. So you're going, the idea that the books are in-universe stories, again, to like trivialize the whole thing and make it like an IP and a franchise in universe. One feels very Fazbear as a move, but just from what we know about them as a company, but it feels like it could work. I've not gone into that theory in enough depth to like know all the arguments for it, but I think especially with the stuff we know about like the Mimic and Fiona, I think it can make a lot of sense, because it's like, is it mixing and matching things? It's just going like, what's in the archives of the Mimic program, and like what's it? So like Fetch is like a version of Bub and that sort of stuff, and it's like mixing and matching stuff to go like, here's a character for your book and your arcade and your this, and then like you kind of pointed out and we pointed out, and everyone's like, we're going to ignore this note because it's so confusing. It's the note about Fiona in the basement, which is like, this is Fiona from the book.
Yep.
And we're like, this is in the 70s. So that's the other factor, is you're going, okay, well, that tale story seems to be affecting the Mimic in some way in the 70s. But if that is a Tales book, how does that work? And I think that's like, that would be like, again, a very recent hang up I might have. But again, I've not looked into that theory enough to know the full argument for it. But I think it's entirely possible, just based purely on concept.
Yes, and it would fall in the same category as, these other continuities still matter, they still count, because they exist within this universe that we're telling. But that doesn't mean that they literally happened. Like if in the ongoing story we need to hammer home that in 1992 or 3 something happened, but that contradicts FNAF 1. Well, FNAF 1 was just a video game, so like we can contradict it a little bit.
Exactly. And it allows for, because again, like if you look at real world fiction, it's always like pieces of the author go into the work, right? So it's like they're making these fictionalized stories. Fasters writing these fictionalized stories and getting them made. It wouldn't be surprising if a slither of truth was coming through those stories, just because that's how media works. And so again, it would allow you to get those pieces of information and go, oh, that might have been like a revealing of the hand there, or a hammering home of an important date, or something like that.
Yes. So we have a super chat from BDub CEO who says, Scott killed games fiction on Reddit when Help Wanted came out. He said, quote, no, the FNAF games do not exist in universe. I don't exist in universe, etc. So I have this pulled up. I remember this is a whole thing that Scott, it was a big long post he put on Reddit.
I remember him posting, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you and I and most people watching this are aware that the reason that Help Wanted added the confusing story point that the previous games are now in-universe indie games is just that he wanted Help Wanted to be canon, which means that to remake the older games, they had to be indie games. Like, he wanted Help Wanted to not just be a repackage. He wanted it to move the story forward. And that's kind of what he points up in here. And so the paragraph that this person is misquoting is, I'm not canon, Freddit isn't canon, the fan games aren't canon, you aren't canon. Only the existence of a game developer that supposedly made video games on actual events that may or may not be a cover-up by Fazbear Entertainment is canon.
Yeah.
That does not say what the super chatter is saying.
Yeah, Scott isn't canon in games. It's an indie developer that happens to look like him. But the games, the FNAF games are canon, the FNAF fan games are not, and like the Reddit isn't, and therefore, because that's the thing, if Scott physically was canon, then it opens a world of like, the real world is fiction, and so therefore Reddit is in the FNAF universe and stuff, which it isn't. And that's what he's dispelling, is that like, you build up and up and up from one small detail that suddenly gets very out of control for trying to universe build.
Yeah, and it gets really, really meta and all that stuff, which I think is why the short story The Scoop was canceled, because it was about how the FNAF games are real games, and then like Reddit is real and the Theorist community is real, and they say it's just a theory. Like I think that's why that story was not
I
deemed canon.
remember falling off my chair when I read that line. Going like, are you kidding?
Without the story being done, I'm like, I don't think I can solve what's going on in Scott's head. Not because we haven't figured out the pieces, but because Scott hasn't revealed all the pieces to us. And so the best thing we can do is sort of take a shot in the dark with what we have, which is sort of like all of my theories about this current era of the timeline are all up in the air, because I feel like they're the details are prone to change at literally any second.
Oh yeah. No, there are opinions I have about the story of Security Breach now that I could not possibly have had like a year ago.
Yeah.
So
where I guess the question is sort of in a defense of GodDavid, what evidence would you predict would be in the next FNAF game that would be sort of the check mark? What's the check mark you solved it for GodDavid?
I think if an animatronic were to address Gregory as David, that would be really good as well. I don't see why Glamrock Freddy would do that. Perhaps like the Mexis computer itself, or a different animatronic. Yeah, because obviously it's clearly supposed to look like him. So I think a character acknowledging that design similarity in universe would be good. As far as the crying child, I don't see that ever getting confirmed unless they do a Secret of the Mimic DLC that's set in like 1983. If that game hypothetically were to happen, God, I don't even know. The leap, I don't know. To me, the leap Scott would have to do to kind of explain, because it's certainly like you said, one way or another, it's certainly happening. It could be like Fiona is subconsciously conditioning the kid to act like David Murray, whatever, or consciously doing. I think it would make more sense if because why would she influence someone else? I don't know. Who cares? I think for FNAF 4, there would be a lot more explaining that needs to be done, just kind of because of the nature of that game. There's not really any like verbal dialogue. There's no character dynamics. It's not as high tech. So I think you'd have to go through and ScottCon a lot more details to make that convincing. But at the same time, I absolutely feel it's what he's going for, because he's bringing Crying Child into it. That's an objective fact. He is. Not only is David similar to Gregory from the therapy tapes, he also lives in the Crying Child's room, or an older version of it. So Scott deliberately does bring in Crying Child to this. But for that one, and I admitted it's in my video, I have no idea what they could do. As a writer, I'm not even creative enough to think of how you would convincingly make me feel like, oh, it was really David the whole time, without me just going, that's the stupidest thing ever. I still think it's what he's going for, because like all of the, it's all the stuff all the evidence is there. It just depends how you interpret it. I think even Tom kind of agreed with the general premise. He just thinks that the kid itself is M2, I think. Right? In the game theory episode, I think he posited that
Gregory?
Crying Child... Crying Child. Crying Child is he's Charlie Watt parallel. Yes. William stole a business associate's kid and made it into his own, and his own kid became it, question mark. That kind of thing. So I think he thinks Crying Child is physically M2.
Yep.
Which would still mean that Crying Child is M2. I also believe Crying Child is in some way M2, or has that personality involved in his head. I just think it's in a different way. I think it would really take away from the story, and I think it would be a retcon to make him a robot.
You're in Psychic Friend Fredbear Lonely Freddy.
That's the best mechanism I can come up with. Yeah. That's the best I can come up with, because it's an established. It is an established. Okay, so unlike the Crying Child, where most people have an idea of like, he got his head squished. The Crying Child got his head squished and then he died. Right? If he was a mimic, that didn't need to happen. If he was M2, he didn't have to die. Right? But he completely disappears from the story after FNAF World. Whereas with the Psychic Friend Fredbear angle, yeah, it's like a massive stretch. But for one, Psychic Friend Fredbear is still largely unsolved. We have no idea what's going on with him. And it uses a previously established metric in the series as to how that would happen. So, And like I said in my video, the body swapping trope has been used 9 trillion times in Scott's writing. So I don't think it's that much of a stretch to say that he'd use it again. The plush is also at least partially definitely malevolent. Because in the logbook it's drawn looking all wicked and stuff.
Yes, it's definitely possessed, at least by the time of Sister Location. And they draw it to look very angry in the logbook.
I understand how dumb it sounds. But I have to reconcile the fact that this is clearly what he's going for. Like,
A dumb story.
What way?
A dumb story will look like a dumb
he's
theory.
doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas your angle, and we won't get too far into it, but your angle is just that it's not intentional at all. It's just a byproduct of living on the same property.
Yes.
But then again, I ask, like, to what extent, right? Because if William Afton is influenced to be like, who knows, like, if he's like a better inventor, or if he gets better at making robots when he lives on the property, or, and Cece starts acting like David Murray and doing things David Murray does and being scared of things David Murray's scared of. Because they have personality similarities too that I go over in the video, right? They're scared of this, they're scared of that. It's like, to what extent is he just essentially David Murray? That's what I mean. That's my problem with the overwriting of the agency in the story. Is because I feel like no matter which way we're slicing it, even with Fate Fiona, he might as well be David Murray, because literally every personality characteristic we get from him carries over. He has no identity of his own.
Crying Child is also, a collection of 70 sprites that has
that's true.
3 lines of dialogue. And of course I can never think of examples when I need to, but the notion of a family moves into a haunted house, and then the youngest child, who's usually like only a couple years old and can barely speak, and they speak in like a cute little kid voice, is suddenly behaving like a Victorian child, or they're behaving like, a whole family got slaughtered in this house.
Usually that's because they're possessed, isn't it?
Yes. Well, not fully possessed in that the person who's, who they're channeling is like, can move their arms for them, right? They're not being puppeted. They're just sort of being overwritten very slowly by whatever ghost force is in the house. Kind of like,
and
You're the Band.
The Tiger Rock spirit thing is on that property as well, right?
Yes.
So I could see, so like I said, I could see a bunch of different ways of doing it. I could see that it's like he moves into the house and he gets possessed by the Agony Tiger Rock ghost. He moves into the house and he gets overwritten by Fiona to start acting like David and basically be an exact copy. William Afton follows the Silver Eyes plot line and actively tries to recreate the spark of life that he witnesses. Like, there's a bunch of different ways you could do it. I just think it happens.
Me, you, and Tom are in agreement that it happens.
Okay. That's more than most of like Reddit and Twitter, dude. You should see it. They actually hate I don't even know how you deny this. Like, what else do you think he's going for, if not this? People are like, I hate GodDavid and Fate Fiona. Okay, why are these things in the games then? And they never have an answer.
I've never been on Reddit in my life, and I don't listen to Twitter.
God bless.
Just because I feel like people, obviously, great theories can come from those communities. You had the name David from the logbook posted on Reddit like before Hyperdroid figured it out. But one of the reasons that I sort of don't value, and this is going to sound horrible, but I don't mean it horribly, I don't value sort of the text post theories as much as I do people who will sort of put a voice to their ideas, is because it doesn't undergo the same level of scrutiny, right? Like if you post your manifesto on Reddit and you get 30 thumbs up and 5 people commenting in the comments, that isn't the same as putting a video out there that gets thousands or tens of thousands or 100,000 views with hundreds of people commenting, and they'll point out things that you never noticed, and it'll sort of make you reconsider maybe how you interpreted certain pieces of evidence. So I think that as YouTubers, we get our ideas questioned more than people who just post their theories in like Discord or Twitter or something. And because we get questioned more, it makes us sort of either reconsider our ideas from other perspectives or double down. Like
I think so. I was kind of very set in my ways of how I thought GodDavid happened for a little bit, but now as time's gone on, I've been like, well, if he's on the property, Gibby's right that the F10F4 computer is also on the property, and Tom is also right that the M2 might also be on the property, and so there's all these factors that are also that they're all true, and they're all possible ways this could happen. So that's why I've kind of boiled GodDavid down into just all 3 kids are supposed to be the same. Some entity is working towards making them the same. Whether or not that's conscious or not, doesn't matter. It's just that the theory is simply that, and to that end, I'd say it's like inarguable. Like,
Yes.
what are you gonna do? Are you gonna be like, no? So
It's just
that's all.
parallel.
Yeah. The exact theory that like CC has a chip in his head or is getting mind swapped with Psycho Fredbear, you can choose to pick that version. You can also choose to believe that Willie Mafton stole M2 from Edwin and put skin on it. Like it doesn't matter to me. So
Have you read or did you watch my coverage of You're the Band?
your videos are in the sleep playlist. So I might have gotten very slightly into that.
You were like Brave New World sleep taught the story. Yeah. So that's about a little boy named Timmy who puts on Freddy's actual head. His mom asks him like what about what do you think about Freddy's? And he's like, they came and they killed all of my friends with a knife. And she's like, excuse me, like that happened 20 years before you were born. He's like, no, I was there. So he's getting slowly overwritten by Gabriel, but he's still Timmy. He's Timmy, but acting weird. And this kid's like 10 years old, right? He's not like a little baby. He's going to school. He has his friends. It's not like he suddenly doesn't know how to use a computer just because, Gabriel's inside him now. But it's sort of like
I actually really like that idea, though, because my whole thing was that that would actually fit better with narratively. Because if you remember, in the therapy tape section, I say that there is a specific point at which the software program Gregory's talking to is not fully like wicked or fully in him yet, right? It's like, I thought you were talking to yourself, and then it changed, started saying different things. I thought it was you, but it wasn't you, right? So that would actually that would fit better if it's like a slow transformation, because that would be identical to how Gregory's happens.
Yes. So that, whatever mechanic it is, right? We might learn that Crying Child found an artifact that he wasn't supposed to, and it got him to be possessed. But, Fate Fiona can still work that way. Yeah. But I just find that more compelling than Psychic Friend Fredbear lonely Freddying him.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I have absolutely no clue.
All right.
It's just and like clearly the plush itself is important because William Afton keeps it around in his evil bunker of doom. So something's going on with that plush. We still don't know. It's been like 20 years. We got no idea. Yeah.
It's so interesting that Scott hasn't touched on Golden Freddy since UCN. Like, that's the one thing that doesn't appear. I think we got like a transformer that might be Golden Freddy. But the iconography of Golden Freddy has not reappeared. Nightmare Ione has. And other sort of entities have. But it's almost like Scott's like, yeah, Golden Freddy's story finished in UCN. Why are you guys still asking about it? That's my take.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree. So I'm not going to narrow down a specific way I think GodDavid happens, just because I don't think there's enough evidence to lean any particular way.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question that might be a little difficult to answer, but between your two theories in your video, the everyone is a robot and the game's fiction, which one do you personally believe to be more likely? Or if you prefer GodDavid or Fate Fiona, but like of all these concepts, which one do you think is the most likely?
Yeah, like you point out, like, and again, like part of my whole theme with Secret of the Mimic, with all the theories, was these are theories, and trying to emphasize that point of this is all ideas, and Secret of the Mimic showed us that ideas can not be right, and they have to change, and we have to be open-handed with stuff, which is why I did the multiple parts, and it's why I really loved being able to react to both yours and TDreads theories, because again, they felt like extra branches of that path, which was great. And part of the reason I did it was also because at the time I was like, I don't know which I think is more likely. And so I'm going to present both rather than just going, this is the game theory stamp of approval of which idea we did, which if I had only done one would have been the takeaway. And so the point was kind of going, here are interpretations we can have as we try to figure this out. Where I kind of land, I think at this point, for me, it kind of ends up falling into a world of, it's either going to be everyone's a robot, or it's going to be somewhere along the lines of GodDavid, or some combination thereof, I think is most likely. And I think the reason for that is it keeps it a little more contained. It keeps the story somewhat simpler. it allows theorizing to continue to happen because these characters did really exist, and William Afton isn't now just like a figment of imagination. But it also I'm still working myself through the nuances of who's a robot, who's a kid, who's brainwashed, and who is following programming, and how did those things come about. The thing I liked about GodDavid was the fact that it keeps people as people. They get to still be there. Like Gregory gets to be his own character. Hooray. He's just brainwashed into being into someone else, rather than everyone being a robot and there's no real humans and nobody has a character. So that was like the emotional side of me was drawn to that as like that feels better as a story, as a narrative, to have more humans involved in that way. But with Glitch Trap and the Mimic virus being able to take over people, it feels like that is involved in some way. But then where M2 falls into that, there's an element of like, we'll probably find out once the DLC drops, because there's gonna be DLC, and so we'll probably find out like, do we see M2 end up cemented down in the basement just waiting for ruin, or do we see M2 picked up from the bedroom by like a hand and then whisked away? And like, because the DLC to some degree will have to, like, even if it's a time skip like Security Breach to Ruin, it will follow on from Secret of the Mimic, and so that will inform which of the endings is canon, which then kind of informs which of those directions is more likely. Because if the Mimic's like broken in pieces and cemented away, it cannot physically be David Afton, just by default. Which is why I prefer the idea that David Afton is a kid that's brainwashed, but the brainwashing of David Afton versus the brainwashing of Gregory is a much harder thing to pinpoint.
Yes. At the moment, which, I guess we can all just like sort of wait for the DLC to tell us, but at the moment, which of the 3 Secret of the Mimic endings do you think makes the most sense to theorize from? Like, which one do you think is canon?
I honestly think... it's like I thought I had an answer, and then you start rethinking it through in your head, just because a Rye Toast video popped into my head, and I did quite like his explanation for the bad ending being canon. Part of me wants it to be the parachute, because I like the idea that there's a big, like, everything's gone up in flames, and it's the middle of September, and the Mimic walks off to go and attack Full Fest for the DLC. I love that as just a concept, as an idea. But I think I think it's the more and more I thought about it, the bad ending, because it feels like the one of the endings of Help Wanted VR, where you're again just locked into the suit and you see Glitch Trap just kind of like jumping around. And it feels like that, but it feels like, oh, this allows the Mimic to remain on site. M1 gets the data diver like they wanted, and you end up, dead and out of the way. But it allows the Mimic to remain underground. Fazbear can then come in, find the Mimic, not as David, but as the Mimic, and go, this technology, we want that. Whether there's then anything that he then finds about David and then decides to turn it into David, like the M2 David from there, is like speculative best, but it could allow for that progression, and allows whatever the DLC is to mean that the Mimic's there, but it also means Murray's costume mana is also still there, which it doesn't have to be, because obviously everything gets built on top of everything. But if the building's there, it means that the realistic part is it means that they can just refurbish Murray's costume mana for development, and it allows for that. Whereas
for the game,
if the building's totally wrecked, it does mean redoing a bunch, which I guess they did for Ruin, so it's still possible. But yeah, I think bad ending feels most likely, I think.
Yeah, it's also the precedent set by Sister Location, where it's like you do all the extra bonus stuff and you get to the other ending that reveals all the lore, and then that's not the real one. It was still the bad one.
Yeah, and we talked about that earlier a bit with Security Breach and those endings being a bit skewed. And that's the problem, because it's not one pattern throughout the entire series. It's impossible to like predict almost, because again, even with Princess Quest and all of those endings, it became impossible until Help Wanted 2. And then we're like, oh, it needs to be Princess Quest at this rate, most likely. And it doesn't mean those other endings you can't learn anything from. Like, Burn Trap can still be around, just whether he, as important a figure and he's literally sentient and still Afton and is like another matter. But like the Burn Trap carcass can still be there.
Yep.
And that's the challenge with these is like, but I think yeah, the idea that the simple bad ending is the ending. It makes the most sense. It makes the most sense for Arnold as a character, like rather than like I'm gonna be a hero when I'm on like 36 hours of no sleep.
Yeah, and
For
he
a character who
doesn't.
has no stake in anything.
He has no reason to think that Dispatch isn't his buddy, like his boss. Even
Yeah,
in the bad ending, he thinks it is him. So like, why would he
yeah,
disobey the order? Like, what's character
exactly.
wise, that's the makes the most sense for
Character-wise, it doesn't
Arnold.
make sense. It feels much more like it's for us as the player who has figured out the pieces and
Yes.
gone, that's not correct. But and again, like it's a thing of like making him so sleep deprived. Also, is another one of those. That's we can get out of jail free cards if we need to. If we need to say, well, that like the like ghost white tiger, it doesn't matter. Like it was just him hallucinating. You know, it feels like they've got a few of those that they've stacked a few cards where they can just go, no, hallucination, no, fiction, and they can just kind of pull those out when they need to. Which I guess is freedom for them as creatives and for Scott, who figures it out as he goes along to some degree.
And for us, who's trying to see every single little piece of evidence, like, counting animatronic toes, we're like, what do you mean? The basis of my entire theory was like Arnold hallucinating because he's tired. Like, I spent 7 hours talking about the FNAF 3 map that's in the parachute ending. What do you mean that was like just a fun little Easter egg? You can't do that to me, Steele.
Oh yeah, the Easter egg versus lore debate is huge, especially since Security Breach, because it felt like Steel are known fans of this franchise, which is awesome, and it's great to have fans working on it because it means they're passionate, But it does come that challenge of like, is that an Easter egg? So it's like we were talking about the Fetch arcade cabinet. Is that an Easter egg or is that lore? Are we supposed to draw an inference from that, or is that just a fun like, haha, if you know about the books, you know who that is? And in a franchise where there weren't the Easter egg was boop the nose and it go squeak, like that was the Easter egg. Everything else was lore important to some level, or it was like, here's a kid's drawing, and it's like, okay, it's a kid's drawing of a kid holding Freddy's hand. Like, there's not a lot more to that we can infer, but it was everything had importance, and it's because you were normally so confined to a small place, or as soon as you get to a big scope like Security Breach, you're like, here's loads and loads of stuff. And so some of it might just be an Easter egg, and you're like, but what's what? There's no way to differentiate in this series.
Yeah, it seemed like the nose booping squeak was like the only non-diegetic Easter egg. Like, that's there for the video game. Everything else is like important in lore. And the two quotes that people will throw at you, depending on what they want you to think at any given moment, is Scott after FNAF 4, when he's talking about how no one solved the game, and he's like, people think I threw in random Easter eggs this time, but I didn't. And then the alternative is the Mr. Hippo line from UCN, when he's like, sometimes a story's just a story, you can't get crazy over every little thing. So if you want to dismiss the tiniest detail, you quote Mr. Hippo. If you want to say the tiniest detail is actually the key to the entire franchise, you quote the FNAF 4 post.
True FNAF fashion, there is contradictory evidence for both sides of every argument. You can justify it with about enough evidence, and both arguments also have enough flaws to disprove.
Oh my gosh. Have you, we kind of talked about the Fiona, I fell asleep and dreamed Tales from the Pizzaplex thing a little bit. Have you had thoughts on the Fazbear's Fright map being in the Proto Freddys? Because that's the other one that really trips people up with, like, if this is intentional, what are they even trying to say?
Oh, yeah, sorry, my brain had to do that thing, because there's Fazbear Fright and Fazbear's Fright.
Fazbear's
Fright is FNAF 3.
Yes.
And yes, like, my brain's like it's almost dyslexia happening in my brain in real time. Yeah, that... I remember seeing that and going, what is that map? And and at the time, I think I called out that it was FNAF 3, because I was like, that's not the other two. Why is that there? I mean, for me, it's all prototype Freddy's. Obviously, the layout is much more FNAF 1 coded, but it feels like this is all in the planning stages. Like the body, like the animatronics all look a little different, and everything's a little bit off because it's all planning stages. So for me, I wonder whether it's like the plan. It was either a rough plan for this location that just didn't pan out, and there's just like, here's the leftovers, or is it the plan for like a set, like the next location, or oh, we've scouted this building, what would the layout for that build, like there's this other building we might purchase, what is the layout for that building going to look like, and how would these features work in that location? Because it wouldn't be surprising for the people who are uncovering like Fazbear's history and creating a horror attraction. Like the best location you could get is an abandoned Freddy's. So having the FNAF 3 location be an actual Freddy's location at some point makes sense. And I think it's probably more leaning in that direction. That's like, this was going to be a future location, or was maybe the initial plan that was then scrapped, but they held on to the idea and then later down the line purchased this extra building or built that building. It then, like everything else, becomes defunct. And so in whatever year FNAF 3 takes place, they go, there's this abandoned pizzeria and we're going to buy that, and then we're going to, like, because all this stuff is here, we're going to frame it around that.
Which, so
that would be my gut.
that 5-minute speech that you just gave is the gut feeling of what Steel Wool intended by having this one little PNG in the game.
Right?
They're like, oh, clearly.
People wonder how we have like 70, 80 theories on the channel. This is why!
Clearly, everyone, upon seeing this, will figure out that what this really means is that we developed another building and then everything you just said. Because that, unironically, is the easiest explanation with the least assumptions, right? That's the Occam's razor, is what you just said. You could go off and be like, oh, well, this means that actually Fazbear's Fright was underground and like they did blah, blah, blah. That's taking a lot of assumptions. And so the question that people, my audience at least, I'm sure that you guys get way different comments because you have millions and millions of viewers and commenters who all have different ideas.
It's different.
It's a bit different when people can write a 10-paragraph essay in my comment section and like think I'm going to read it. The question everyone asks is, oh, but isn't it more likely that it's an Easter egg? I think Rytoast found that the map for the FNAF 3 location is the default image on screens that aren't visible to the player in Help Wanted. Like, they went out of bounds, and all the computer monitors that the player can't see are the FNAF 3 map, or that image. And it's like, oh, well, clearly it was just a developer error, and they left it there by mistake. Or maybe someone at Steel Wool thought it was the FNAF 1 map, but it's actually the FNAF 3 map. And so as a theorist, I'm like, well, if we say that things in the game that appear to be lore are mistakes, then what are we doing?
It comes back to the fiction argument, right? It's like, well, what can you work with? Because suddenly you just go, oh, well, that's fake. Oh, that's a mistake. Oh, that's an Easter egg.
That's Scott's one retcon from before FNAF 4.
Yeah. Like, what are we working with? Like, what do we actually have to play with here? Because if you can write any piece, like any contract, it becomes that thing of like, it's about finding reasons to like defend your argument almost, of like, here's all my reasons why my theory works, but what about all these things that don't mean it doesn't work? Oh, well, those are mistakes.
Yep.
Oh, those are retcons. And it's just like, no, we have to accept the fact that this is a contradictory series and so much of the evidence doesn't actually work together so often. And like these guys, and especially with this game, or Secret of the Mimic, and like that map specifically, my argument would be they have clearly cleared up their act, in the sense of if you've watched like Horoscoped or Tetrabit, when they are breaking these games and going out of bounds and looking at the maps and all of that stuff, compared to Security Breach, where there were old versions of the levels, or there was a weird method in Ruin which meant that we did a Matpat skip, and like all these characters and signs floating in the ether. Security Breach, in Secret of the Mimic, there's like nothing there. And so it feels like they're going, we know people are going to check the files. We know people are going to look at the map, like break the bounds of the map. So we need to be buttoned up. And so that being in such a prominent position feels like it can't just be them going like, oh, we missed that. When they were so meticulous with like this level of detail to like not leave confusing evidence out of bounds that would allow people to either predict and or go off in the wrong direction. To some degree. There's always a chance that I'm giving them way too much credit, but that would just be my thought process.
Even story-wise and even like glitches and bugs-wise, I think Secret of the Mimic is significantly more polished than Ruin or Security Breach. Another sort of small detail, right? I kind of put these three things in the same category: the Fiona Dream Note, the FNAF 3 map, and the oil painting in Edwin's house that's the Mimic and David on a hill overlooking the factory.
Yeah.
Who painted that? Painting. Is it real? Why is it the same as the Gregory Glamrock Freddy one? What's going on?
Again, that feels like depending on the outcome and desire you have. You know, we used it in the everyone's a robot kid theory because it was that sense of, look, again, these two things are mimicking each other. These two things are the same. It feels like it feels real to me because it just hammers home the point that these two things are connected somehow. How we get there, whether it's possession or AI mind control or robot kids, is up for debate. But the fact that you've got these two like mirrored images, because they're facing the other way as well.
Yes.
I believe. And so it literally looks like a mirror almost is like put down the middle of them. And so it's a reflection of one another. And that feels intentional because if it would be one thing if they were all facing the same direction and literally like the same back, like I think, did TDreads talk about it in a live stream where he said, oh, it's like the reverse view?
Yes.
So one is looking at the factory and the other is looking away.
Yeah, it's like you're on the same hill. One's looking inward at the factory. One's looking outward away. Yeah.
Yeah. And so again, it's that idea of reflection. One's looking back, one's looking forward. You know, and so that there's that idea of similar but slightly different, and these two things are a reflection of one another. Whether you then want to refer the reflection in the same way as like these two characters are parallels in like games fiction kind of direction of like they're a reflection of one another but not the same, but like one is a fake because that's how mirrors work. One is not the real thing, one is the real you. Or if you want to go down the direction of no, we're just being shown like these two characters are walking like a similar path. They're reflecting one another in reality. Like you could take it again. You can take that and interpret that in any way you want, almost to fit whichever narrative you prescribe to. But I would say it is real, and I think it is there. Like compared to the FNAF 3 map, which is like that's an asset that exists. And you do use testing assets to just go, oh, we're just going to shove something on the screens while we figure out what we put there. And then one gets left behind. That could happen. That asset is like, there's only one, right? From my understanding, it's not like a repeated asset. So it's not like the notes on the boards in Security Breach where there's a lot of repeating notes because it's like, oh, they have like one or two post-it textures that they just repeat. And the same in like the post-it room where it's like 5 textures that repeat over and over again. It's more than 5, but you get my point. That idea, because it's like this one image, it's like that has to be purposefully placed. It is an artistic rendition of this scene. So effort and money has gone into making that rather than it being an asset that just existed. And so it's like it has to be real and it has to be trying to tell us something, but it's hidden in the classic way that FNAF is of going, you have to really look for it. But once you find it, it's like a big piece that is going to help form your argument or form your theories.
It definitely feels, because I think it's like it's almost like it fell off the wall. It's on the floor in the room with all the tape decks before you get the final ending. So like you need to do all the lore stuff to get to the, like you have to do all the legwork to get there.
Yeah,
and it's almost like they're like that's the lore reward for finishing the game. Yeah. That's them being like, and here is like the answer to everything. Boom! Look, acrylic painting of you know, the hill in the factory and the Mimic and David Murray, and you're like, okay, and he's got a striped shirt, maybe.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that.
Yeah, it's almost like making it slightly more. Yeah, it's almost like they're like, okay, you think you understand what's going on? No, you do not.
And that's the fun of theorizing and what we do
Heck
is
yeah.
getting to explore the different options. And the fact, again, the reason we have 70 to 80 theories on game theory is because over the years, one new piece of information comes out, makes you rethink every interpretation. And so suddenly we have used, I will put you back together to justify 10 different theories,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yep.
And it's like, and it's not to say that one of those is inherently more right than the others. Like the hope is eventually we eventually get to the point of going, this was the right answer. But any of those could be correct at any given point in time based on the evidence we have. But it just goes to show that so few pieces of evidence we get are ever definitive. It's rarely like, this is confirmed. It is just this is a strong implication based on what other evidence we have. But who knows?
Can you? I might be springing this question on you, but can you think of any piece of evidence that you feel like it's been confirmed what that was clearly pointing to? Like even from like the earlier games.
Yeah.
Because something. So, for example, I think that the night guard in FNAF 2, Jeremy, is the victim of the bite of 87. I think that's just clearly what those games are saying. But people disagree. People still think that it could be someone else, or maybe that just wasn't the day of the bite. And to me, that's almost as clear of a confirmation as we can get.
Yeah.
But people will always have different ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think actually along those lines, when we got the week before, the fact for me it felt like almost pretty confirmed that it was Foxy that did the bite.
Mhm.
That's why he got put in Pirates Cove. And so it's stuff like that. There are a few, and one of my theories we talked about this is like there are a bunch of these small confirmations that we get, which are great. I'm trying to remember what other ones I talked about in that video, but there is a few like that where you go, great, that is a confirmation. But often those small confirmations, whether they move the plot forward, is questionable. Which is why I feel like Scott's okay confirming them because it's like, okay, Foxy did the bite. Now what? Like, what does that change?
Yeah.
Other than we now know and we can say Foxy did the bite or whatever it is.
Yeah, people have been waiting 10 years and it doesn't actually affect the current story. So yeah, we'll throw him a bone. We'll answer it in a book.
Yeah. Or again, this one is, I would say, is not confirmed, but one that I think is it feels all but, and it feels very, very close, is the Midnight Motorist thing. The in 5 Laps at Freddy's.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that we've now got the Spring Bonnie thing on the car that is being driven that night feels like it's going, guys, okay, like let's put this to bed. This is Afton. We've just painted him different. Again, there's still a chance it's not. There's still plenty of options, like whether 5 Laps at Freddy's is even canon, but it feels like one of those small bones that's been thrown to go like, let's just put that to rest a little bit and move on.
Yeah, I think if and I don't even know when the game's meant to come out anymore, but when the game comes out, if all the details that are currently in there, like the Spring Bonnie head, the in text but not displayed for the player description of the car, where it says like the perfect car for speeding away from the site of a murder. Like if that's in the game, then yes, I think that definitively answers what Midnight Motorist
100%.
is. Yep.
Yeah, right. And there's a bunch of little pieces like that. Again, I'd be interested to see if they update the Murray sign to reflect what the Murray signs we saw in Secret of the Mimic, because that would more definitively tie that game in as like more canon, I guess, or at least like the lore that like the pieces we can gather to use for lore. Again, canon in the sense of like, I believe these characters are kart racing? Probably not. It's probably an in-universe game more realistically.
Yeah.
But the idea that like you can use this for lore because look, it's the same poster kind of vibe.
Yeah, and that billboard in general was really interesting because in the weeks and months leading up to Secret of the Mimic, I feel like the books canon debate got like to its most heated point ever.
Yeah.
And that billboard was a major point of like, of course the books are canon. That billboard is basically what the book said. They're bringing it into the games. And I guess they were just wrong. Like they just did it wrong. Like
yeah, like I don't know again whether they were working on, because again whether we don't know how secretive like, and whether like Steel Wool was sharing anything with Click Team. So there's a world where it's like Steel Wool are working on this, and their Click team's working with Scott, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we talk about this in the books," and so they take like the book's description of the Roomba essentially, and then go, "Yeah, that's what we're doing." And then Secret of the Mimic comes out going, "No, it's like an actual little robot," which is way cooler. And
Yeah.
I prefer it. It feels more FNAF-y rather than just I made the Roomba. Although, you know, he did invent recycling, so who knows? So there's things like that, but I remember that. It's why I did a theory back in January going like, okay, we've got this Tiger Rock now showing up in Help Wanted 2. If the books are canon, what does that mean? What does that change? Because it got to such a heated point of the books are canon. If you don't agree, like I know ID got a lot of like hate online for some of her takes. And again, it was that discussion of going, let's explore this. Let's just see, but not really. Like I was still like, I was unconvinced, but it was just okay, let's explore the idea. Let me try and see where you guys are coming from. And I get it, but at the same time, I was just like, but the evidence doesn't stack.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I did a whole I did one of these with ID before the game came out because she was still firmly in the books aren't canon field.
Yeah.
And she's just like, in the Tale story, the indie game developer, Steve Snodgrass, he dies at the end. And in Help Wanted, one of the first sentences in the game is that they're actively trying to sue him. So like from day one, the books were never in the games. And I'm like, I've never heard that contradiction before, but that's just one of many. So she really knew like all the facts. She was firm in her stance and never wavered because she knew all the evidence.
Yeah, she is. It was a couple months ago now, but she swung by the Theorist offices, and hung out with us for a week. And yeah, she's incredibly knowledgeable, especially about the books. Like very very literate, very media savvy, and so yeah, knows this stuff and is very. I mean, and like power to her, she's very like set in her ideas, or she has conviction. That's the word I'm looking for. She has and has the proof to back it up.
Yep.
Which I think is great.
And again, in this case, it was great because with all the naysayers and all the people who were changing their minds, even and this obviously is not saying anything bad about them, but like Rytos and She's Always Nervous both put out videos that were like, okay, well, I guess this is good evidence that the books are canon, and we're going to talk about that. And ID was just like, no, I still don't think they are. And so I do think that it's really good that not only do we have people who have different perspectives in the community, but people with different levels of taking in evidence from different sources in different ways. I actually just did a community poll where I asked my community how we should take metatextual comments on the series. I don't know if you watched the Comic-Con thing that just happened, but Matthew Lillard made a comment about the FNAF 3 movie. He's like, you guys all know the story. In FNAF 3, I get to come back and face, Mike. And I saw everyone being like, Matthew Lillard just confirmed that Mike Afton is the protagonist of FNAF 3. And I'm like, well, does he know that? Like, how?
Or is he talking about the movies?
In the movie, it would be that, like, if we're making a theory and our citation is Matthew Lillard once said this on stage, is that the same as evidence from within a game?
Yeah, I think, and again, I think that I would say that there's almost like levels to it, right? Like, if Scott makes a meta commentary about something, you're going to go, okay, there's probably some credence here. If Steel Wool says a thing, there's probably maybe lesser, but there's still a solid level of credence. Like, we've quoted Steel Wool a bunch of times about like tragic villains and that sort of stuff because it's shows where their mentality is when making the game. But with Matthew Lillard, like, I sit there and I go, how much does he like? And I don't know. And he might suddenly be like the biggest FNAF fan in the world. Who knows? But it's like, my understanding is he will probably be sitting down with Scott and the directors and being told like, this is the plot, this is the story, this is how this goes. And so Scott will be feeding him information, but it may be skewed in the way the movie's going to work. So it's like, oh yeah, and then you get to come back and fight Mike because that's where the movies are going to go.
Yeah.
And so that's his understanding of the plot versus I've played the games and I know the theories, kind of vibe. It's hard to say. Yeah, like hard to say. There's levels to that meta commentary. But yeah, that's wild that you said that though. That's crazy.
Pickle Pepper did send a super chat asking if Glamrock Freddy could be a version of M2.
M2? I think the opposite. I think it's a version of I don't want to get into it. This is my new like epic podcast I'm premiering with Unwitted Truth. So this is our first episode's on Glamrock Freddy. So, but no, I don't think it's M2. I don't think it's M2. Because M2 is cooked, remember. M2 is like, oh, I hate everything. Bleh, I'm going to punch everybody. Bleh. So.
What's your, okay, but you think the Glamrocks might be, still mimic programness in them?
Certainly, yeah.
So, to you, what's the, because some people might think that, like, oh, well, the mimic is the mimic is the mimic. To you, what's the difference between M2 being Glamrock Freddy and just the mimic program being the Rockstars? Or the Glamrocks?
So, M2 is M2. M2, I don't think is the virus that's throughout the entire mall. I think the virus, and I'm about to get canceled lifetime. I think the virus throughout the entire mall is the root program of M1 with the agony of Afton attached to it. Sorry, chat. Just think that's what it is.
By M1,
Thought
you
about
mean
this a lot.
You mean like Fiona-isms?
Yeah, I guess. I think I'd say so. So and this is what Tom says too, and I try to call it M3, right? Because I don't, yeah, and I see Kat in chat saying it right now. I don't think Glitch Trap is M1 because the second you attach Glitch Trap to M1, it's no longer M1. So I want to say, I do not think Glitch Trap is M1 because the moment you attach Glitch Trap to M1, it's no longer M1. It's something else, which is why I call it M3. So M3 is what I think the Pizzaplex is run on. A version of the Mimic AI that has been infected by William Afton's agony. And then you got the source of the glitch shifted and went system-wide. So there's a glitch that goes system-wide and takes over everything in the mall. So I think that might be the Aftonness.
So the Aftonness of Glitch Trap. So Storyteller, right? Because for me, Storyteller in the games is kind of like, F10. So Storyteller is true, but corrupted by Glitch Trap.
Hey, this is where I start wanting to cry because yes, but then we have the thing that I'm pretty certain is the Storyteller, which seems to actively oppose Burn Trap. So I don't know, Gibby.
Do you think that Glitch Trap still exists, like in a sequel to Security Breach, or even in a Ruin Part 2?
I think he's out of the cloud, but I think he is in the Burn Trap body. I think Burn Trap is a real thing, and I think that's where the last remnants of the Glitch Trap branch of the Mimic AI are. So, and also, chat, literally all you need to do to believe this theory, go into the basement of Security Breach. There's a Glamrock Endo, and then literally spray painted holding its shoulders is a Glitch Trap. That's what writers call imagery, chat. That he's got a hold on the system. All right.
So Glitch Trap has been burned out of the internet like Ultron, but he's still in the Burn Trap body. Yeah. And you think that so in Ruin we kind of see Burn Trap's little back to tank. Do you think that he's still in there?
Yeah, I mean, they say he's not in there, but they're not going to put his model in there if it's not supposed to be rent. It's going to lag the game. So, don't know either. That's kind of a question I don't think because the Blob's out, right? Because the Blob's roaming around. So I have no clue. I can't answer that question. No idea.
If Glitch Trap appears in the Princess Quest arcade cabinets, do you think that the defeat of him in the cabinets is sort of what, quote-unquote, burned him out of the internet?
It would have to be, wouldn't it? Because Princess Quest 4 is what results in him getting squishified. So, yes.
Yeah, so my theory would sort of be that his... As a program, right, he's sort of everywhere. He's like the Cloud. And once you defeat his 4 Princess Quest Horcruxes, now he's only in his own physical body, which is some form of burn trap.
Which I'm kind of crashing out because I'm annoyed Tom said this now. With kind of the Princess Quest, it does kind of make sense that it would be glitch trap. Like Afton would be the thing infecting the Balloon World machine. But then you get into how that machine is specifically in Sun's room, and the therapy tapes have him acting like David Murray and having to it's really odd that it would be if Glitch Trap is the only thing at play in his head, I think I think that I can still reconcile it because what I've been saying is that this branch of the AI, it is M1 with Glitch Trap added on, so there's some amount of both. So I think the reason that Gregory might be like Crying Child and David Murray, even if it's the glitch trap virus going in his head, I think that it could be because the thing taking him over is a mixture of Fiona and Afton to begin with. So I think that's one thing Tom added in his theory that I would like. He was like, I don't think it's F10N4. I don't think it's or like David or something. I don't think it's I don't think it's M1 or M2 basically responsible. And I was like, you know what, he's probably right, but it still is those characters from Marie's Costume Manor that are responsible in some way because they would be at the root of that program. Does that make sense?
So if let's say this sort of M3 is inside of Gregory, and then the glitch Afton-ness is removed, is Fiona still in there? Is that possible?
If only the glitch Afton-ness is removed, yeah.
Okay. Is
then yeah.
Does M1
then the rest of the program would just be there.
Would you say that M1 remains in an untainted form, or all versions of M1 are corrupted?
No. So I think that I do think we're going to eventually find F10N4 or speak to F10N4.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the program itself has essentially, I think it's just been hijacked, essentially, right? Because I don't want to spoil my new podcast episode on Withered. Yeah. So I'm not going to. But my thoughts are that I think that William Afton is catching a flight, basically, on Fiona. He's carpooling, bro. He's backseat driving. That's what I think. I think the glitch trap essence, and again, just look at that drawing in the endo daycare. Just purple spray paint of Afton with his hands holding the shoulders of a endoskeleton. He's hijacking it. He's along for the ride and is influencing it in negative ways. Say hypothetically that something managed to, say, boot an animatronic into its base programming, that animatronic would then be exclusively run on the original F10N4 software without the glitch trap violence. Hypothetically, if that happened. If an animatronic got booted out of its usual AI and into a lower state, then it would be run by Fiona exclusively.
Do you think that a sort of glitch trap Afton, is that the final boss of this era of the franchise, or is M2 the ruin mimic final boss of the franchise?
I don't think M1 is strictly violent, but it will do anything to get what it wants. So I would say M1, or some weird version of like the Trash Rabbit, where it's like the mimic and Afton, and they're both like in a super big like woo. I would still call F10N4 kind of like maybe not evil, but like very selfish. I don't think they're a good person, but also if there wasn't, like I said, if there was an animatronic that was in the base mode of the F10N4, it would be inclined to pay particular protective attention to a child that looked like David Murray. That's all I'm saying. Spoiling my podcast. Chat, make sure you still watch it, though.
No, it's not spoiling. It's a tease. People want to hear more, they'll have to go to you. I have a couple more GodDavid questions, but we did just get another super chat from Pickle Pepper. If David Murray is the one being copied, so Fiona or GodDavid, why do we have an Elizabeth and a Michael?
So that would be what I was just saying, where it's both of them, right? And so, dude, I'm thinking of more evidence live time. I'm gonna have to talk for entertainment. Oh, I'm so mad. Oh,
say it,
no.
say it. Breaking news. You gotta say it.
Okay, it's okay. Oh Christ. So I'm just right. Okay, it is both of them. It is okay. So the M1 AI, it is that Afton is hijacking it. Here is why. Because I wasn't telling you what else is in the drawing, right? If you go down into the endo daycare, there are two paintings right next to each other. The first painting, right, is of a endoskeleton comforting a little boy with no glitch trap ears, just the endo by itself comforting the little boy. The picture right next to it is the endoskeleton with purple rabbit ears attached, controlling its shoulders, with the same little boy, but an additional younger sister and older brother. It's both of, that's it.
Okay.
It's both of their families. So the reason there's a Michael and Vanessa is because from within the AI that it's hijacked, it's manifesting those additional children.
So wait.
The original AI only has the one.
So if I saw those pictures, I'd think that the first one, okay, that's M1 Fiona in the robot form
Yes,
with
David. Murray. Yeah.
And then the next one is, it's been taken over by Afton, and then Michael and Elizabeth are there.
And then Michael up here, and they're not in the other one. They're not in the other picture. So with the base endo, there is no younger sister and older brother. There is one with when the purple rabbit ears are attached.
So that would be evidence that Dave Afton is the mimic.
It might just be to represent the forces at play in the Pizzaplex, right? So that would be that Gregory is represented by, or Gregory is representative of both. Vanessa is Elizabeth representation. As far as Michael goes, that could be Glamrock Freddy. I don't think so, but I think it's very interesting that once you have the purple rabbit ears, right, attached to that version of the mimic AI, then the other two children are drawn into that picture. Whereas when it's just the AI, which we think is Fiona, it just has a little boy. To me, that's very clear. To me, that's very, you look at that, you go, okay, yep, F1 unaltered, or sorry, F10 unaltered, it's got a little boy, Dave Murray, cool. Oh, F10 infected by Afton, other children, other parts of the family are starting to come into the picture.
Do you not, okay, so I guess differences of opinion here might be about what eras these images are supposed to be referring to. I sort of see those as, one is depicting how things were in 1975, whenever David Murray died, and the other is sort of depicting things in 1983. Or are you seeing them?
I completely disagree. So I think it has nothing to do with the year. I think it's entirely, since they're right next to each other, one with a green light above it. Also, the one that's just M1 has a green light above it, and the one that's Afton has a purple light above it. So they're very clearly that green-purple juxtaposition.
Are you saying
it's so obvious to me.
They both represent something happening during the events of Security Breach? Is that what you're saying?
It represents the forces at play in the Mimic AI and what they want.
So one is
because
desiring...
of the green light that shows the one that loves the little boy, right? You can connect that now that we have Secret Mimic. That's so easily connectable to F10 and 4, right? When then you go with one under the purple light that has glitch trap spray painted over it, where the entire Afton family is added into the picture, an older brother and a younger sister, and you know, okay, there's another force that's at play in this endoskeleton, and it's clearly William Afton.
So when
I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain this to me. I know Wither's getting in the chat, a bunch of people in the chat are getting it. To me, this is so obvious. This is
when Storyteller is using the staff bots to paint these portraits, the Fiona part is like, yes, me and my son that I want. And the Glitch Trap Afton part is like, me and my 3 kids. And sort of manifesting as different
And that's
ones.
why the paint disagrees with each other, right? So the purple paint on the images with one boy or something, it crosses like an X over it. Like it's dissatisfied, right? The purple paint and the green light are in disagreement about what is supposed to be happening.
I like this.
So the purple paint is like, I want 3 kids, and the green paint is like, I want David. And so then the purple paint is like, yo, f you. I'm going to spray paint an X over you. Because I don't like that. I want to be William Afton, and I don't want to have just one kid. I want to have because I'm William Afton. I'm cool.
I think that is incredible evidence that Glitch Trap is piggybacking on Fiona / Storyteller entity, as opposed to them being 2 different forces, right? Like everyone's always like, the Nightmare staff bots in the basement are like Charlie ? Nightmare own, and it's fighting against the other No. To have these 2 identical paintings sort of manifest the different families, to me, says that the same force, again, Storyteller, has 2 consciousnesses.
Yeah. Yep. So I think from now on, I'm going to assume that the Mimic AI running the entire mall, as of the start of Security Breach, is not entirely M1. It was at one point, but has been hijacked. And that's the particular reason for some of the violent tendencies. I think that is the hardest I have cooked in a few months.
That was really good. No, that's I don't have a lot of opinions on Security Breach era, but I think
sorry. I mean 14 Sigma.
Yeah, because I don't like TDreads because he's just in it for the money and the brain rot. He just never have any good theories.
Is just brain rotted. TDreads never has any critical thinking moments. Oh, TDreads.
Okay, my
corporate slop.
My brain is expanding. The Glitch Trap virus comes together because you put it together in Help Wanted the video game, right? Right, Vanessa puts the tapes together, now the virus is manifest? It has
Truth
more power.
Blizzard.
Okay, we think that Help Wanted was created by sort of copying data from F10, right?
Yes.
So, and then that's why there's Help Wanted rooms in the Pizzaplex, because they're sort of like just using the same AI. It's like having a bad generative AI like ChatGPT thing. It's like you put in data and it's just remixing it.
That's literally what I say in my script. In my script, I say it's almost as if AI slop regurgitated what the input was.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we're regurgitating what we saw in Help Wanted into the blueprints for the Pizzaplex for no reason.
The thing is, if you're gonna ask me where Glitch Trap came from in the first place, no idea.
It's actually Afton.
No, I have.
It's really Afton. It's actually Afton. It's really Afton. It's Glitch
do you
both.
think it's actually him?
I think it's really him. It's his remnant agony.
Yeah, but how did he get in there? How did he get in there?
Because Fazburger.
Because I'm gonna say it at this point in the timeline, chat. I don't think it's just the mimic copying Afton, and I think if you think that you stink. I think that
so you
it's
agree.
Afton's agony.
Yes, good.
Yeah.
So where I was going with that is that Help Wanted sort of didn't have a William consciousness battling for control, but after Help Wanted, once you put them together, now it does. So the construction of the Pizzaplex would have Afton in the background, sort of fighting with Fiona.
Oh, because
you put them together in Help Wanted.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
But I still think they're both in there. I think Fazbear Entertainment's right. I think they're having a domain expansion battle. I think they're both in there, like domain expanding to try to win.
Yes. Sure. If we're both in agreement that Afton's been burned out by the end of Princess Quest 4.
Help Wanted 2. He's been
and
booted
thus,
out of the system.
Yeah. And Help Wanted 2 ends near the start of Ruin, right? It ends and you give Cassie the mask.
Oh, wait, yeah. That would mean he's not in the AI in Ruin, though, which would mean that the Vanny mask that's helping to lead you down to get the mimic out, like, 'cause the helping in the mask contributes to you going and letting M2 out, right? If it is M2. So that might be because there is no longer the Afton influence in there. So now it's just Afton and 4, like, all right, go let this dude out.
So
could be.
F10 is Vanny Mask / Helpy. Mimic, who's talking to you as Gregory, is M2, which is why they argue with each other. They sort of both have the same goal? Question mark? Fiona wants the sun to be left out.
But then Gregory is also F2, and the robot run on the base of our program wants to protect Gregory because Gregory looks like David. Like, it's weird. It's weird.
No, I get Fiona wanting to protect Gregory, the person, because it quote unquote reminds her. Well, there's
of but that's like what? If they're just like, I just so happen to put on my polo shirt with 2 stripes today, I'm gonna be pissed, right? If it's like I just don't think it's purely symbolic because he acts like him too.
No, I think that they probably bought him that shirt and dressed him like that.
Yeah.
So that would mean. So if I would say Afton was not in control until the end of, or not present, not a decision maker until after Help Wanted, and then isn't after Help Wanted 2. So he was only sort of
act like David. If you look at the therapy tapes, when he is under the control of whatever that AI influence is, there's a bunch of callbacks to language and imagery used in Secret of the Mimic regarding David Murray. That was actually Tom Game Theory's favorite part of my GodDavid theory. That was nice.
We could tell from all even the end of Frights, we could tell from all the way back then that Scott's really thinking about AI, which isn't really something we would know if the books didn't exist. The concept of the Mimic isn't really introduced until Secret of the Mimic.
Yeah.
The idea of it's an AI and is it a person? It's acting like a person, but it's just mimicking, blah, blah, blah. But that's been in the books for years at this point. And so I think that we can definitely use them for something like Dr. Rabbit. I mean, Rabbit is William. It's this kid who's being brainwashed. We can look at the main game. We know that that's what's happening to Vanessa. So, okay, if Gregory from GGY ends up being like a Vanessa parallel or something like that, it still tells us what Scott is thinking and what storylines he's considering. I'm post Secret of the Mimic, I felt like to be sort of consistent, I need to just throw out the books. I'm just like, if the Mimic story can lie to us, then anything's if we don't know
Yeah.
what elements of Edwin and David's story are, from the book carries over, then all of it can just kind of be tossed away because it's equally as convincing as it is contradicted.
It's why I talk about it being open-handed. It's like, while we've got it, there's stuff we can use and we can talk about it. But then if suddenly they go, no, here's like the game's version of the events and it's completely contradictory. If I'm open-handed with it, I'm like, okay, that thing's now fallen out of my hand or that thing's been taken away from me. I'm not upset. But when you get tight-fisted with that idea and you're like grabbing that idea and holding it super tight of like, no, this has to be true, it hurts when that thing gets taken away, and it makes you angry and confused about that, and it makes liking the franchise and wanting to continue theorizing much harder. Being open-handed makes it much easier to adapt with the changes that happen. And this franchise has so many twists and turns. We have to there's an element of just having to be open-handed and going, there's the idea we believe right now. That can change. And Matt was always very good at that. It was something we talked about a lot in the early days of my time here at Theorist, was just that sense of like every year he would basically go back to reassess his perspective on FNAF and kind of where the lore was, and if anything new jumped out or if anything else changed, or like, okay, my philosophy has been that Michael Afton is the character we play as in all the games. Do I still believe that? Let me go through it.
Yep.
And like I think that's an important thing that we can all do, is like, let's reassess. Let's go back and like see if things have happened that can actually change our mind, because going at it with fresh eyes allows you to find things we haven't.
Yeah, it's very like, obviously Theorist, you guys have your standards and your things like that, but I will say it's very commendable that you guys are so open-minded, because a lot of theorists will sort of come up with their pet theory, and I obviously have this too, right, with my like arcade theory. And it's like, okay, when a new piece of media comes out, what you're looking for is either confirmation of your theory or some big piece of counter evidence that like disproves it. But I think what you were just saying that we really should be doing is, when a big new piece of information comes out, like a big full game or several books or something like that, like you said, once a year, that seems like a good time frame, is start over and sort of see, like, going all the way back to FNAF 1. If you play FNAF 1 again, knowing that Fiona's, like, underground or something right now beneath you, or knowing that, like, you're the purple guy's son, like, what does that tell you about the things that are happening in the game as you're playing them, as opposed to just assuming that you know everything that's happening? I think in one of the first couple game theory episodes about it, one of the posters in FNAF 1 turns into a crying child, and I think he connected that to the puppet.
Yeah.
Like, it's a child with tears streaming down their face, kind of like the puppet. And if you felt like you'd solved FNAF 1 and now we're just solving FNAF 2 on top of it, and you didn't look back at that detail, that's something that you could have missed. And so one of the things I like telling to the community, I try to be the example, is like, when new information comes up, we should almost start from zero and allow the new piece of information to be as important to us thought-wise as old, ingrained piece of information that we've had for like 10 years. Because otherwise, we're always going to emotionally weigh the older evidence much stronger than the new evidence, because we don't like the new evidence. It's new. It's a stranger. We don't want that. We like our old, comfortable theories. And so I love the concept of starting over every period of time. I think that's really, really commendable.
Yeah, and it's well, thank you, first of all. It's something, again, I will give full credit to Matt, because I just think it's something that he really instilled in all of us when it came to like big franchises. It was always about don't be afraid to like reassess. But it's why we have a billion or so many of my, because all my FNAF theories initially came in the year leading up to Secret of the Mimic, the year and a half leading up to it. And so many of them are predictions based on evidence we had at the time, based on a new book that came out. And so many of them are like reassessing Afton's origins, and like, oh, who was the first? Like, was Chica the first, like, killing? Was he, had he been killing for a while? Maybe, was he just a sociopath? Was Henry actually not a great dude? Like, a lot of those things were coming up in those things. Because again, I was just going to go, I was like, oh, this is a prequel. Let's re-examine what we know about these characters and like where these things go. And it's like, and while none of them ended up being true because Secret of the Mimic went in a way that no one could have predicted, I still really like those videos as entertainment, as theories. I think they're fun and they explore the evidence in interesting ways. Like I was using flipping Shakespeare quote by one of the developers as like, oh, well, let's look at that story. And I'm like, and like, you know, was that ever, like you were talking about meta evidence. Like, was that evidence? Maybe not. But for a prediction, when we're like scrambling for like what little pieces we can work with, it's fun to explore the idea and go, I can actually see Henry and William's relationship in these characters. That's a funny connection. Let's talk about it. And just my big thing when even just taking over the channel generally, not even just FNAF related, was about making theories feel fun again. Not that they weren't fun to write before, but I think especially thanks to FNAF, we had become a channel about being right and about being like giving facts. And people took us as such, as going, oh, like, no, this is definitely not correct. Like, I did a theory early on in my time that Shadow is a genie. Shadow the Hedgehog is actually a genie. And there's a bunch of evidence why that works. It's weird how well it works. And of course, I got a lot of comments going, no, of course, this is not what they meant. Of course, this isn't the canon. So I'm like, nah, yeah, probably not. But it's a funny idea to explore. And that was kind of what the channel was founded on.
Yep.
And so, especially with FNAF and how, you know, fiery the community can get about, especially their own theories, as you were saying, it's nice to feel almost like the calm within the storm of going, I'm just exploring some fun ideas. Let's just explore some ideas together. And so, again, I know people reacted to my game fiction and all those sorts of things. And people go like, you know, game theory doesn't care about FNAF anymore and those sorts of tweets flying around. And I'm just sitting there calm within the storm, just going, I think this is a fun idea to explore.
Yeah, when I was talking about the books, whenever I find an allusion to something, I'm like, it's important to the audience who's reading this to know what's being referenced and why. Half of the Fright stories mention Frankenstein, like just by name, if not just using something like lightning and, you know, something coming back to life as a plot point. And I'm like, you need to know Frankenstein to understand Five Nights at Freddy's. That's just like a required reading. Like that's homework. You need to go do the homework.
Yeah, no, it's exactly that. There's and FNAF, I mean, all media does this, but FNAF especially does that, where it references other media, which again is why I felt like okay to like, I'm going to jump on the Shakespeare quote because it's like we get like, if you've ever watched Astro Boy, it is weirdly familiar to a lot of like, or weirdly similar to like the Afton story of a father loses a son and vows to bring him back as a robot kid. Like, again, depending on how you prescribe to it, but there's some similarities there where it's like, that feels like an influence. There's, I'm trying to remember this movie. There was a random B movie one of our writers brought up of a like wizard essentially who literally like he dies and comes back to life and literally uses the phrase "I always come back," and it's like a B movie from the 80s. And there's a couple of other things within that where which ties him to Afton in a lot of ways, and you're just going, these are literary references that are really interesting, and it's fun to go, hey, this feels similar. Let's understand the context because that helps you in, as you say, it like informs your reading of the text if you understand the full context. Yep.
Even things like Steel Wool explicitly called out war games and the Whopper as being the influence for Nexus. Like they said that in John FNAF's interview with them, with J-Top. So I went and I watched war games, right? Because they brought it up because I feel like that's part of doing your homework. And yes, it's a guy had a son and the son died and then he built a computer and the computer goes by his son's name. And I'm like, this seems like it might be important actually.
No, exactly. Yeah, no, I love that in that video of yours. It was great. It was a really good one to be able to look at and go, oh.
And then for my coverage of Fetch, I spent about half an hour discussing a old musical called Brigadoon, because it's mentioned by name once. And I'm like, what? Greg, the cops are like, I didn't know that Freddys was still there. And in his head, the main character, Greg, is like, what do they mean it's still there? Is it like Brigadoon or something? And I'm reading it, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. So I went and I watched the movie, and then I'm like, this is important, so I brought it into the video. So if you click on my Fetch video and you skip halfway through, and I'm talking about Fetch the dog, who's really Andrew, and what this has to do with the 0 point field, and this character, he has a dream about a faceless man that's actually William Afton from The Man in Room 1280. And also... here's a musical about a Scottish town that disappears from the 60s, because it's important, because it's in the story.
Yep, there you go. I've just found the name of the movie I was referencing. Dr. Phibes is the name. Phoebes? Phibes?
How do you spell it?
Phibes.
This might have to go on my watch list. Oh, Lord, this looks very, very B-movie-ish.
Yeah, 1970s B-movie. There's also The Return of Dr. Phoebes, Phibes, whatever it is, from... Again, it's been a while since I've looked at it, but it's that's in like 1990 as well. So it's that thing of going, yeah, this feels like the kind of thing Scott would have grown up with to some degree.
Yeah, there's also there's a movie called Tomorrow is Another Day, and it's about a guy named William, and he murders someone, and he goes on the run, and he changes his name to Michael, and he meets a guy named Henry who takes him in, and that's the movie. And everyone who's like heard of this, like there's a bunch of Reddit threads on it, and they're like, this can't be a coincidence, right? Like this just has to be Scott's favorite movie, right?
Yeah.
And like maybe.
And that's the thing, like art, life influences art, right? And there's that sense of you even subconsciously, things just like eke into to your work as you're like taking influence from other places. And it's not plagiarism, or it's not we're stealing ideas. It's just you're influenced by the world around you, and everything is there was a great video back in like the 2012 or something, which is about how everything's a remake or a remix. Everything's a remix, a remake, or a reboot in some way. And it's great, and it's just like all these ideas get mixed mashed together into different ways, and it's the same argument that with every indie horror game, right? It's like, oh, this is a Poppy clone, this is a this clone, and it's like, well, every game can be traced back to another thing.
Every game is like Resident Evil or Slenderman or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. You can look at the lineage and kind of go, you can see what influenced different things depending on the author, depending on what they grew up with. Even like videos on our channel where we're covering a lot of different IP, you can see what games like influenced Matt the most in especially in the early days, like what we covered the most. You can see the kinds of jokes and humor and that's different from other people who grew up around the same time, like Markiplier or like The Completionist or any of these other people, or Peanut Butter Gamer, all the same era, but different sense of humor, different games they grew up with, and but everything kind of is influenced by those factors in different ways. And so it's like, if we've got a movie which has got a William who changed his name to Mike and meets a Henry, you're like, it's probably in some way an influence. Probably. It's hard to deny. What's the name of that movie?
Tomorrow is Another Day.
Tomorrow is Another Day.
William's catchphrase. Because Toy Chica, as we all know from Daco, Toy Chica is a William Afton. The thing that I hope we're sort of pointing towards as a franchise is another sort of Henry speech moment, where he just comes out and says all the lore.
Henry?
Yeah, no, Henry. No, Henry. In FNAF 6. He just comes out.
Oh, no, I thought you meant like you wanted to come out again.
No.
I'm still alive, bitches.
At the end of Scott's story, he's like, and then I will have a character speak for 60 seconds and overtly point out everything that's happening. And I would hope that this saga concludes with a character stepping out and just explaining what just happened.
Yeah.
If that happens, what does that character say that quote-unquote proves GodDavid? We have Pickle Pepper.
No matter what it is, it's going to sound like ass because the story's chopped.
Mm-hmm. So you don't think that it'll be, good writing, compelling?
No, I think no matter what they choose, it's already, like, I don't like Fiona either.
Boo.
I think it's all dumb. I think it's all, I wish they would have just moved on, like, and not brought, like, more crying child imagery, David imagery.
I really liked where people thought the story was going with sort of like the cult of Afton, right? You have this new serial killer come in who's like mentally unstable and is like, I am the new killer now, so my motivation doesn't need to line up with weird things like the business disagreements between William and Henry, all it needs to be is, I want to kill people, and I'm doing it at Freddy's, which allows for future Freddy's to be haunted. That would have been a great direction to go in, to have a solid cutoff point with the old lore. And Scott didn't do that.
I think they're gonna. I think the best they would do is probably have some character referring to Gregory as David. That would be the best way to do it.
Pickle Pepper says, if F10 is the Van Eye mask, what is Mexis, a third AI? I don't think Mexis is like a person. I think it's just like a computer program.
Yeah, it's probably just a program meant to. It's just the cradle, right?
Yeah. The F10
Oh my
computer
God.
Fiona was in obviously looks like the Mexis computer that we find, but I don't think it has a conscious intelligence in it. All right, so GodDavid is the idea that the David Murray echoes into David Afton and Gregory via some field isms that are unspecified, and that's sort of what's going on, and it's not necessarily incompatible with Fate Fiona or Tom's theory that some of these people might be robots, although you would prefer that's not where the story goes, right? That's a good summary?
I have no preference because I think they are all equally not good. I don't want him to have Psychic Friend Fredbear mind swap powers. I don't want the Crying Child to be a literal robot with skin slapped on him. And I don't want William Afton to just move on to some property and magically be compelled to name his son Dave and have him wear a shirt that has 2 stripes on it. I think they are all dumb. That is my conclusion. I also think one of them will be true, but I think they are all stupid.
Is GodDavid compatible with the theory that FNAF 1 through UCN never happened? They're all just in-universe video games inspired by real events, completely fictional.
No.
So you would not
Because
say
Dave Afton might not be a thing to begin with.
Yes,
It's
Dave...
only if Dave Afton's a real person. Only if Dave Afton is a real person. Is it? Yeah.
Why can't... Okay, so do you think it's possible, not that it fits with GodDavid, possible that Dave Afton is a completely fictional character based on David Murray?
I mean, it would suck. I mean, I can't... Like, Scott hasn't said that's not what's happening, so it is, by definition, it's possible.
Okay.
But it would suck ass.
If that ends up being the true conclusion, you would agree that GodDavid is incorrect.
Yes. I would say that another David is true. Then I'd boil back down to another David.
Like, does UCN exist in universe as a game?
I don't know. It depends on... Yeah, that's a matter of opinion. I don't think so. No, it doesn't. Wait, that's proof right there. I got it. Cassie says Nightmare Ione is from the old headset game. That's not true. Nightmare Ione is from the FNAF 4 Halloween update. So it's not one-to-one with our reality. The games are not just in... Yeah, because we have games that are canon and have lore meaning that Cassie doesn't have. Otherwise, Cassie would either say, Nightmare Ione, hey, it's from that old Halloween update, or Nightmare Ione, hey, it's from that old Custom Night game. Not, it's from the VR headset. So we have games that have lore significance that Cassie does not. UCN certainly has lore significance, but it predates Help Wanted. So Cassie would have said, so all right, fine, Video G23, Help Ultimate Custom Night does have canon elements. So if that was also a game in universe, Cassie would have said, oh, Nightmare Ione, it's from that old Custom Night game. Yeah, I would disagree. I would say flat out right there, that's incompatible with all the games being just games.
And
because Cassie doesn't have one of them.
Yeah, people like Cassie and Gregory would be very familiar with FNAF video games, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah. That's from that old VR game.
Yep, that's from that Custom Night game. That's from that old VR game.
Unless, okay, so like Scott did say that Nightmare Ione isn't canon, but Nightmare Balloon Boy is, so maybe the in-universe version of the games don't have...
Yeah, but then that's not the games of that, but it's just, I don't know. I just think it's stupid. Because then why couldn't you extend that to the VR? Oh, it's not canon in VR either. So it's not in their version of VR. You know what I mean? You could just extend that a game forward. There's no actual logic to why it would not be in UCN, but would be in VR.
Yes. We do... Okay, is Shadow Bonnie in VR?
Shadow Bonnie...
Because Shadow Bonnie has a cardboard cutout in the Pizzaplex. So it's a character.
Shadow Bonnie in FNAF VR.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure. It would mean that the...
I mean, the blacklight... I don't think RWQ is...
RWQ, yeah.
I don't think so.
So it would mean that the in-universe version... So basically what me and you are saying is the in-universe version of the quote-unquote indie games are not one-to-one with the ones in reality. But Nightmare...
The first 3 might be. The first three, because
Yeah.
I think in the games, that's what they say.
Nightmare Fredbear is shown on the slideshow at the beginning of Help Wanted.
First four then, yeah, first four.
Yeah. Nightmare Fredbear is the slideshow on Help Wanted, and RWQ has a standee, so we can maybe assume that he's from FNAF 2. If not, if Fright's Fiction is canon, then he's from Hide and Seek. But what is Nightmare Fredbear that there can be a photograph of it?
Yeah, well, it's a game.
So the Steve Snodgrass is influenced by the field Fiona to show Mike's Nightmare in his.
I mean, that's
game.
not what I said. I just said that the FNAF they have FNAF 1 through 4 as games that are identical or very similar,
but not sister location.
But
6
we
and
also
UCM?
have them. I don't know. They just never say. We just never get that much information, and in fact, we do get information that contradicts that with the. It's from the old headset game. That is information that contradicts
the idea that UCM would be canon.
Yeah, Nightmare. Yeah, that UCN is canon.
Jungle Boy says, if our games are in-universe ones, Gregory would be like, bro, I look just like that nerd from FNAF 4, WTF.
Facts.
Gregory would consciously be cosplaying Crying Child.
Yeah, I get where Tom's coming from with that, and I can't say anything to disprove it. I just really don't think he'd go there. I think he's going to have some wild explanation for a reason like, he says like, oh, these games were based on actual events. Maybe that's true. Maybe Hand Units for once is not lying there, right? The games are based on, real. But he thinks that the actual events are like Edwin and William Afton's not even real, stuff like that. It could be. I don't think he would go that far. So, and I have no evidence to prove that. There's also no evidence to say that it is true yet. It's like, it's just a guess, like all the other stuff is. But if I were Scott Cawthon, I would never in a million years completely eradicate all the meaning of the first 8 entries in my franchise.
Have you, because obviously there is other media that's done stuff like that. Have you seen Wes Craven's New Nightmare, the Freddy Krueger
Never even
movie?
heard of it.
So it's a movie from the early 90s. So you've heard of Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street?
Yeah.
So there's like 5 or 6 movies about that, and then they kill Freddy, and then the series is over. And then the next movie is about the director and writer of those movies, and the 2 actors that play the main characters. And then Freddy from the movie universe comes and starts attacking the actors and the creators of the movies.
Yeah, and you know what that movie probably is? Like, stupid. So I hope he's not. That is just because someone did it and it was dumb doesn't mean somebody else should do it.
And there's obviously also other examples.
He could be right. I would argue it could be in running for the worst video game story ever told. True, but it could be. I wouldn't put it past Scott.
If Scott was just like, the lore is too complicated, the story's over, I don't want to trample over all of it.
None of it's real. Yeah, none of it was real.
So that's a pocket universe you can enjoy, but we're moving on. And, I'll explain it by having it be in-universe video games. Crying Child is just David Murray,
Yeah, I think that would be utterly nonsense.
Because it's sort of too close to Dream Theory, which Scott doesn't... Scott was, like, insulted by Dream Theory.
Yeah.
Scott felt insulted.
Scott doesn't like... No, I think it's worse than Dream Theory, because now we're over 7 games instead of 3. So it's worse. I think it's worse than Dream Theory.
You have sort of gone on the record saying that you don't think that Scott is a great writer. You have, in fact, famously, ironically said Scott Cawthon is the greatest writer on Earth.
Secret of the Mimic wasn't bad. Secret of the Mimic on a character level was pretty good. Although he did have the privilege of setting that very far back in the timeline, so we didn't have to keep up much internal continuity. He kind of got to do it his own direction because it was the earliest thing.
How do you feel about people having their evidence for a theory or dismissing other people's theories using the comment or the argument, my theory is bad, but it's because Scott's a bad writer, versus your theory, any given your theory is wrong because Scott's a good writer and wouldn't do that?
I think what you should do instead of saying good or bad is look into what Scott Cawthon does as a writer and his So what I just said is a guess based on previous behavior from Scott, which is that he was not fucking with Dream Theory, and he erased it, and he knew the fans didn't like it. So you don't think it was true, but no. He made an effort to deconfirm it. Let me rephrase. He made an effort to deconfirm it, and he went out of his way to make an effort to deconfirm it in the next game. And he knew people did not like it, and then chose still to make an effort to deconfirm it. So I think that based off of Scott's previous behavior, it is more likely that he would not do something even worse in that direction. So I don't like to use good or bad writer. I like to use Scott Cawthon as a writer. What does he do as a writer? What history of writing does he have? What motifs, plot structures, character dynamics? And I like to take that and apply it to other stuff he's written instead of just going, lol, he's good, lol, he's bad.
I am very hyped for your analyzing Scott's writing tropes analysis when you're eventually done.
That's gonna take a while. I still got
Next
books
year,
and books to get through.
I have a slightly complicated question, I guess, which would be based on it's kind of like a head scratcher. If the first like 7 FNAF games are in-universe games only, could it be possible that like the week before the book is real events within the timeline of Security Breach and Secret of the Mimic, but the games aren't, and that's why there's contradictions?
I mean, yeah, that is like, I mean, that's an entirely possible reality.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. It suddenly goes, oh, this is like, again, like Steel Wool, the Steel Wool era is telling you the real like version of events, but the books are all, like the Choose Your Own Adventure series or interactive novels. Sorry,
oh my gosh,
are also telling like the real versions of, like, you know, it's the real essentially like diary entries from the real Night Guard and like what he experienced kind of vibe. Like, could be if we really like the idea, but again, it also might, and that would help explain why there's contradictions to FNAF 1, because it's the real version of events in a similar way to like if we did a reboot of FNAF 1, why it would be different from the original. Like, possible. Again, It's one of those ones. It's like an idea could work, but evidence to like definitively go that is what is happening is probably sparse.
Yep,
I would guess. But it's fun to think about.
Thank you for watching. The full unedited live streams, including some details about Tom's time working at Theorist and some upcoming projects from TDreads, are available over on my main channel, Gibby's Horror Homestead. Remember to be nice to each other in the comments, consider supporting the creators you admire, never lose sight of the things that are important to you, and remember that Freddys stands for Friendly, Respectful Engagement, Discussion, and Discourse Yield Success.